Okay, how about now? Is that better? All right. Okay, can we call the order?
Call the roll.
Yep, thank you.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes, here. Oh, boy, I get to go first this week.
Councilmember Fitzgerald,
Here.
Councilmember Alvarez. Here. Councilmember Clark,
Here.
Councilmember Stokes.
Here.
Councilmember Todd,
Here.
Councilmember Saper,
Here.
Councilmember Tull.
Here. Okay, the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Councilman Smith. Anybody want to approve the agenda?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, agenda's approved. And it's time for public oh, all in favor, sorry.
Yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Thank you. It's time for public comments. There are a lot of people here, so I just wanted to remind you, in case you haven't been here before, there's a 5-minute limit on public comments, and the timer will be posted up on the screen for you to see. And should be on.
Okay, I'm Liz Ryan, 2417 Erie, North Kansas City, Missouri. And several always at the meetings I hear say, if the public needs to come up and speak. So I talked to Mayor, and I decided I would take the bullet by the horn. So I have covered all 4 wards. And I didn't go to door, but I went to Friday in the Park, Coffee Brew, Bingo, the card players, senior celebration. August the 21st was senior celebration. We had over 75 people, and I got to see a lot of people. And it was National Senior Day. Well, we were talking about the golf carts, so I touched several subjects with them. So I asked about the golf carts, and I'm not going to say which ward what. And they said, well, we don't care about the golf carts. Keep those bicycles, that's the word, those bicycles. Keep them off of Armour Road. I don't care. Keep them on the avenues. But why don't you think about giving us our circular bus back? I understand that. And I talked to some people that one individual on Seminole Drive has a golf cart. And I talked to him, and he said, it's a wonderful thing. Liz, it's great, but you have to have the proper paperwork, have everything done. I take mine to the lake, and I take it to Branson. And then I talked to others and said, well, you know, it's not advantageous for me on Seminole or River Forest because I can't cross the road and I can't even go to McDonald's. So that I understand. Then I talked to French Quarters. Ooh, did I get it about the Iris? That bus, they can't go anywhere, they can't do it. And they said that they can't even go to the library because they don't have a bus. So anyway, I talked to them about that, and any time until 2 weeks ago, you could go down in the parking lot in Mackin Park, and that was that circular bus there. As I told the mayor, you could go to CVS, you could go to First Watch, you could go to Dollar General store, you could go to the hospital. That circular bus was always there. The seniors said they moved here because that's what they wanted, the convenience of this. Okay, and let me see who else. And okay, then I heard about what is the dangers of these golf carts. Well, I don't know that there's any dangers. Well, what about the kids? Do they come in Mackin Park? No, they don't come on their lunch hour. Only time they are in Mackin Park is when they're playing tennis. Okay, I saw the people on 26th Street. Those children are walking to school. The school at the end of 26th Street, their parents drop them off and they have somebody to get them. So there, I don't know. But what about the scooters? That's another thing. What about sometimes the kids on their bicycles, they're worrying about golf carts, they told me. What about the bicycles? Sometimes people are far away. We have a lovely lady on Fayette that put a sign, you know, to be careful, children playing. But I said, okay, well, the bottom line, I think if we could get 8 to 10 definite people on a golf cart, that would be something. I asked people, who can afford them? One person told me they thought they could. The other said, well, I have one, and the other one, I will get one, and the other, I'd probably like it. So, I said, okay, if we get it just right. And I want to stress to you that I'm not promoting a golf cart, or am I not saying no golf cart? I'm just telling you that when I went. So anyway, I said, well, what do we do? I said, why don't you talk to your councilman? Yeah, we do. Well, we can't. We don't have a phone number. I said, well, you can call City Hall and get one. They said, we put them there to work for us. Absolutely correct. And anyway, they should be able to call anybody at any time. And if they're busy, they can call you back. So you can do that. You can call them. Well, we used to could ride the bus, but we can't now. So anyway, and then I said, what else can we talk about? Well, I said, what about Link City? Oh, we love Link City, those that we can have it, but only 2 apartments, I think, have Link City. I'm not sure. But anyway, they like it. And Mr. Barcy had spoke before that somebody might have been here when we were over town. But I remember when Link City was still here, it cost them money, more money, to us pay for Link City than for them to do it. I remember that. And I don't know if... I'm not. Anyway, the bottom line is, I told the mayor I might get over. I've talked to him already. And speeding when they got out of school, well, it was a drag strip. But I went like that and stood on the corner, and I haven't seen it since. And I know that the police department does a fantastic job. They park in front of my house.
Thank
But,
you for your comments, Liz. I really
one more
appreciate
thing,
it.
and I'm going to say, you need to do your homework. I've done mine. And that's what the residents want you to do, to check it out, to do it, and make a good decision. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Okay. My name is Zach Clevenger, 1028 East 24th Avenue. First of all, I'd like to start off with something positive, so I would like to say thank you. As a lot of you know, I don't drive, so I do walk a lot of places. And the mid-block crossing there in front of Wendy's, or right by between Wendy's and the bank, is really a great asset. I really appreciate having that. It makes Armour Road a lot easier to cross. So I wanted to say thank you guys for putting that in. It is being used. I told Anthony that I appreciated it too. He said it was his idea, so I'm happy about that. But no, really appreciate that. So thank you for that. And I wanted to speak in favor of the Link City contract renewal also because I was on the council, just starting the council when we did the deal with whatever they're called now, KC Fiber. But I remember the city having huge overhead costs with that before and losing, at least $1 million, where now it's almost breaking even. I think there was a figure of maybe 20,000, don't quote me on that they're paying in. But I know the residents certainly appreciate the reliable and free internet service. So I wanted to speak in favor of that. I wanted to congratulate our parks on the 100 hours of baseball and all the hard work that the Parks Board did, because they really did a lot of hard work down there, and I enjoyed going up there and watching the baseball and interacting with the parks. And the only other thing I was going to say as far as golf carts, I mean, if you do approve it, I wouldn't be able to get one because I don't have a license, but it's got its advantages and disadvantages, but I think the way the ordinance is written now, I'm not sure many people would use it. It's so restrictive, so it may just be an ordinance that on the books that doesn't need to be, but I think if you're going to allow scooters past Armour Road south, you should allow golf carts, if you're going to allow them at all. If you don't, then you don't. So that's it. Under budget, under time. Thank you.
Hello, Valerie Swearingen, 2408 Fayette. 2 things. Zach was nice and complimented the Parks Board, but really it was Victoria, our Parks Director, who did a majority of the work for the endless game. We just got to go and show up and help out with the small stuff. It's fun that most of our Parks Board is here tonight, so we can thank her publicly in front of all of you. And sorry. Don't cut into my time. Just kidding, I won't talk very long. My next one is on golf carts. I am supportive of it. I like the idea. I know the last council meeting, it was said that you haven't heard much, so I wanted to make sure I came out and said it publicly. I live in a household with 5 people. All 5 of us have driver's licenses, and we have 4 cars. I am one that would be willing to possibly sell my car because I work from home. I'm an introvert. I'm a homebody. I don't go anywhere. I don't feel comfortable on a bike. And if I wanted to go to CVS to get a thing of paper towels, I'm not going to put that on a bike, and I'm probably not going to walk. But if I have a golf cart, it would make it more willing for me to like get out and do something. Same with like Save a Lot. If I wanted to go get some groceries, I know they make bikes that have the backs, but that's just not my person. I would look like a dork. So that's one of the things I like about the golf carts. Our houses were made with tiny garages. It would actually probably fit in my garage, and I could store it. And it would be an electric vehicle, which meets the city's green fleet system. And there are so many restrictions in place. I don't think every other house is going to have one. However, this is just an ordinance. I mean, you guys are possibly passing it to make it possible. If it goes through and it doesn't work, change it. Make another ordinance that says they're not. I don't know how it all works, but you could always take it back down the road. So that's my 2 cents worth. Thanks.
Good evening. Mindy Davis. Most of you know me as Mindy Hart, but I'm here as a resident of North Kansas City, not as a business owner and not as a representative of Snake Saturday. And you know I'm obnoxious every time I get up here because I want it to be clear of what role I'm in. And I want to first start off with Link City. I fully endorse renewing the Link City. I would prefer it be for another 10 years. Because I feel like it's an infrastructure that the city owns that our residents deserve the benefits of. So many of the things that we deserve the benefits of have been outsourced to for-profit entities, and I understand why we do it fiscally, but we shouldn't lose out on all of the benefits of living here. We're a unique community, and I think that's one of the unique benefits that we have. So yes to 3 years, but I'd prefer 10. I want to make it clear, I put out a survey today. And many of you have probably already seen it. Some of you have already taken it. Some of the people here have taken it. Because every time I'm talking to someone, I hear, I'm not heard. My voice isn't heard. I can't go talk to people because it's clear they're not going to listen to me anyway. And so they need a mechanism by which to be able to be heard. And so I put out a survey. I will make the results of that survey public. The only thing that will be redacted is the personal contact information of the individuals for their privacy, because that's part of the problem. But I'm going to encourage this city council to canvass the neighborhoods, much like we hoped you did during election, even if you were unopposed. If you didn't do that during the election, go canvass the neighborhood. Go talk to each and every household and find out what they really think so that the residents can be heard. There's big changes coming. It's going to be developed in one way or another. If it's not the Royal Stadium, it's going to be developed in another way. And we need to be heard on what we want that to look like because we are invested in this community. The Clay County tax isn't needed to build that stadium. They have enough money. They could build that stadium without it. So whether Clay County votes for the tax or not, it could still happen. And so if they want it, they'll build it. What we can do is control zoning and ordinances that protects the architecture of our city. What is it going to look like? We can decide, is it going to be able to be even zoned to have a stadium? That's the only control that we have over this, because if they want it, they already own the property. So it's what do we want it to look like? How do we want it to be developed? Overwhelmingly, I will tell you in this survey, it is overwhelming. They do not want more high-rise apartments. We do not want more apartment buildings promised to have retail in the bottom that gets changed through variances. We don't want that. We want what we're promised when we give support. So this is why I want to encourage you, each and every one of you, to go house to house and meet every neighbor in your ward and find out what they really think. Oh my gosh, the look and the feel of North Kansas City. If we're not careful, we're going to lose it. If we're not careful, we're going to lose it. We have to be smart. We have to be proactive. We are a unique community. right before COVID, we were at 78% rental versus homeownership. With the current apartments going up, we are going to be approaching 90%. I have scoured the United States, and I cannot find another city of any size that has a comparable rent-to-home ratio. We will be a very unique community. It's very important that we look for the unintended consequences that are possible, and we work to mitigate those. If we want to be a walkable, bikeable, golf cartable community, then we have to do it smart. We have to be thinking about the dangers and what that means to the children. We have to be thinking about how that impacts the businesses and the residences. And now I'm going to go into business owner mode. Not going to lie. My property owner is amazing. He's been awesome all the way since before COVID. If the Royal Stadium goes in, my rent is either going to go too high that I can't afford it, or my building's going to be sold because he's a smart businessman and I won't be able to find another place I can afford in this town. And so I need assurances that my business isn't going to go by the wayside because I don't get to go to Clay County voters and ask for a sales tax to support my business.
Hello. My name is also Mindy Schultz. Mindy's are going to cause trouble today. No, I'm just teasing. I live at 1401 East 22nd Avenue on the corner of North Ozark and East 22nd. The residents, I think it was a perfect introduction from what Mindy said. The residents of North Kansas City are being excluded and ignored. There's talk that the new Royal Stadium will be a reality soon in North Kansas City, and my mother received this flyer today in her mail talking about how wonderful the stadium in North Kansas City is going to be. The decision is being made without the inclusion or consent of the tax-paying residents of North Kansas City that will be directly impacted by this major decision. We have been given no information and no choice. Although I have always been a fan of the Royals, I do not want the Royals complex literally out my back door. A decision this enormous should have been brought to the residents first, with information on how this will impact issues including, but not limited to, our taxes, property value, crime, emergency services, environment, and overall community life and culture. North Kansas City has been a part of my entire life, and I have been a resident here for 30 years. I was a graduate of Winnetonka, but I grew up here. I grew up in this town, and now I've lived here for 30 years. I love my little town and all it has to offer. I do not want the culture of our little community destroyed by the gluttony of progress and big money. The fact that this decision is being made without the inclusion of people who live here is yet another example of how residents feel, like myself, that democracy is just non-existent. No one wants to hear from the residents. No one cares what the residents think or feel. No one is even bothering to placate our perspectives. This should be put to a vote, and I don't know how it works. I know you said something about somebody else owns it or something. I don't know how all that works. But I feel like this should have been put to a vote before this decision is even being made. Now, with that being said, I am not against progress. There's a lot of progress that we have made in North Kansas City. A lot of it I like. There's quite a few things that I don't. But you know, when I saw the artistic renderings of the new stadium and the area around the stadium, some of that was pretty doggone cool. But I think it's biting off more than we can chew. And kind of like what Mindy said, I don't want our culture. We have a very unique culture here. And I think we're going to be biting off more than we can chew. And I think if we want to expand and build and have hotels and shopping districts, and I have a great idea. We need a North Kansas City Power and Light District. I mean, that would be great. We could call it the Hornet's Nest. I got all the marketing worked out and everything. You know, if we want to do things like that, that's great, but not the stadium. I think it's going to be biting off more than we can chew. And my neighbors and I have one neighbor who, you know, is for it, but she said, you know, the fact that the residents have not been included in this decision-making process at all is really just another slap in the face. And, you know, call me paranoid, but what's going to happen next? I mean, in a few years, is somebody going to claim eminent domain and want to take my house? That's how I feel, because our voices are not being heard. And I agree with what Mindy said. Y'all need to get out there and talk to people face to face and figure out what they want, because I really feel like that our voices are not being heard. But anyway, that's my 2 cents. I appreciate your time. Have a good one.
Thank you. Further public comments? There we go.
My name's John Younghands, graduate of North Kansas City High School in 1956, and I'm here as a representative for a group. I'm their Hornet host called the Hornets of Yesteryear. We meet every first month on a Tuesday, and I've got some people here, though, with the time moving on, that I want to share some things regarding Gus Limecooler. Gus was not only a great teacher, a wonderful person, to say the least. Passed away September 29th of last year at the age of 96. Just a beloved person for all that knew Gus. So I'm going to turn this over, first of all, to Bob Hyatt. Bob graduated from North Kansas City in 1969, and he's got some things that he'd like to share, and then I'll wrap at the very end with a couple of points.
Thank you, John. Yes, I used to live in North Kansas City, and I had the honor and pleasure of being a student at the high school, and then I worked there for 23 years as a vice principal. And this has been a very special part of my life. But I had the honor and pleasure of being a student under Gus Limecooler, then working with him for many years, being his friend, and watching him probably become the most important person in the history of North Kansas City. I say that because he's the person who has put together the most comprehensive history of this great town. And I know they have it at the public library, and I implore all of you to stop by. He's got 2 books that he did. The first one was called Bridge to the Past, and then when he was 80-some years old, he wrote another book with the celebration of 100 years, Bridging the Century. Please give your best consideration to honor one of the greatest men in the history of North Kansas City, Gus Limecooler.
I'm Steve Fuller. I got the pleasure of being the judge here for 30 years, and I went to high school, and I've had my law office here this is my 50th year here. And I think we just wanted to tie this in. We've talked to Mike Nichols. He was a graduate, and matter of fact, his parents were very involved in the AFS program that Gus started. When I was a student here in 1966, we were the first school in this, I think perhaps even the state of Missouri, to have 4 AFS students. That was really a big deal. And he told me back in the 50s when he started AFS, when they brought their first AFS student here, it was kind of like a rock. It was kind of like the Beatles or something. He said they had 3 or 4 buses or 3 or 4, well, I guess it was 1 bus, but there was like 40 or 50 people came to welcome the bus, to welcome our first AFS student. Now, Mike, do you have a copy or a little mock-up of, we're gonna pay for the money. What we want is, we don't want a street name change. All we want is just an honorary, this is Howell Street in front of the high school, and if we could just make it the honorary Gus Limecooler, Street, and it would just be in front of the library. We'll pay the cost. I didn't know, Mike, we talked to Mike, and we talked to who was the city engineer guy? Oh, I'm sorry, I talked to you and then the other gentleman, I'm sorry, the other guy, who he was saying he thought it'd be no more than $300 or $400 or something. But anyway, we can afford it. We'll pay that. We don't want to have you guys have to pay for it. So it'd be that street. We actually have a place. Or did you want to talk? Okay, he'll cover it. Okay. Well, anyway, so I don't want to. Oh, we've only got a minute left. That's all I have to say.
I'll be really fast. I'm Lori Mangan. I'm with the North Kansas City Public Library. Gus Limecooler was a librarian in our community for a very long time, and he has an amazing reputation that continues to this day. And we do, in fact, carry his titles at our library. And I wanted to mention that many of our patrons and our board members, including our current library board president, Jane Quick, all had a very high opinion of Gus, and he was a great supporter of libraries.
Richard Lanning. I'm a second-generation alumni graduate from North Kansas City High School. My parents graduated. My mother, class of '54, she was in Gus's first class. Nothing but admiration and respect for Gus. This is something that we need to do for him.
Lightning round.
I want to thank all four of you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to come down. It's very, very important, and to wrap up, this gentleman, Mike Nichols, your city administrator, and the signage that he picked up, all we're asking, very simply, for a great person that we dearly loved, was to be able to have this signage. We know where the high school faces to the south, of which he was involved at 45 years, the longest tenured in the North Kansas City School District. Then you've got, right out of that to the left, the Howl sign. We're proposing the opportunity to have this signage the Gus Limecooler way, because he was so involved not only at North Kansas City High School for those 45 years, but also North Kansas City Public Library. And again, Steve made the point, and I'll reiterate, we didn't come here to ask for you city council members to approve in your budget any money whatsoever. It's going to be taken care of by the Hornets of yesteryear. And the other thing is, and you may have a question on this, but because of the time, I'm going to make it very quick. I asked Mike, sitting in his office, do you have any other signage that's been displayed in the city? He pulled up a couple, and that's on a gentleman named Kurt Davis. It says honorary, and it's here in the North Kansas City area. And then there is, the other one is Sprudy Circle. That's from Joe Sprudy. God bless Joe, great guy, loved his family. But anyway, there is a Sprudy Circle. And of course, we all know there's Clark Ferguson Drive down here entering into Mackin Park. Point being is, we're not trying to set a precedent for Gus Limecooler. It's already been set. We just want to make sure this gentleman, who dearly loved this city, and all of his time and effort that he put into it, he would have that opportunity to be recognized with the Gus Limecooler way. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Perfect. Thank you. Further public comments?
I'm an opportunist. Gus is a huge part of the history of North Kansas City. Would you hold those books up for me, please? I'm going to implore and challenge each one of you to check these books out before you make decisions that benefit the city. Go look at the history in these books and consider where we came from before you make big decisions about where we're going. That's my challenge, and my fondest wish is that you will take that challenge and literally delve into these books that Gus so painstakingly captured our history, and consider that before you decide where we're going.
Further public comments? Seeing none, there's only, right? Nothing changed, right? Okay, 2 ceremonial matters, 1 a proclamation recognizing OCCU TECU celebrating their 40th anniversary, and I believe has their headquarters here in North Kansas City now as well since 2019. And then another proclamation recognizing Diaper Awareness Week. And with that, we'll move to item number 8, River, Forest, Park, Playground presentation. So we'll have I believe our Parks Board members all sit. I don't know, someone else set this up. They're all sitting here at the table again, right? Okay. And we have name tags ready to go in the middle here. very threatening, Mr. Mayor. Yep, okay. Perfect, thank you. One thing, as you notice, it took a minute for this to come back on. There's like a hole in there, so it does go off, but it doesn't usually come back on. All right, we got a, here we go. You ready? Kick it off. Yep, I'm ready.
All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Will Metcalf. I'm with SWT. We're leading the design for River Forest Park. I'm project designer and co-project manager. Here today to give an update on the overall design and dive a little bit deeper into the playground discussion. So I'll hop right into it. I know that there are a lot of items on the agenda today, so I'm going to try to move quickly, but also make sure this is getting the time it deserves and make sure that we can answer any questions here today. So, like I said, we want to go over the overall process and schedule, give an update on funding. We're going to give a general design update and review some other pieces that have come through the additional funding. We're going to recap the playground selection process and review the final playground design. And then have a little bit of time for discussion if there is time, and then talk about next steps. So again, as I mentioned, we want to review the schedule today and then talk about outside funding work and then review overall design updates. And then the big item is that we are looking for approval to proceed with the playground design as shown and the purchase order for the equipment that you all are going to see today. Overall project schedule, we're still on track to start construction later in the spring in 2024. That's looking like May. And the only difference in the schedule here is that the play proposal discussion extended a little bit longer than we anticipated, but that does not at this time have any bearing on the overall project schedule. You can see there are a lot of things going on simultaneously, especially with the north slope, the stability study, and the no-rise and other technical study that's being done as part of this project. So just a little bit of a recap. Last time we discussed the use of the ARPA funds in essence to address the erosion and any other issues that are on that north slope. And I want to be careful because we're still in the assessment phase. So, proceeding with the geotechnical borings and the environmental assessment as we discussed last time. So that study is in progress. There was a temporary construction easement agreement formulated so that Terracon, the geotechnical engineer, can get its equipment in the backyards up there and do the borings that they need to do to create their report. And there, Anthony and Terracon are going to head out. I don't believe we have a date completely nailed down, but pretty soon here, they're going to be going out to notify neighbors about the geotechnical activity and go over the agreement. And then the environmental assessment fieldwork is complete, and the report for that is in progress. So that includes looking at endangered species, archaeological analysis, things of that nature. And that comes with the federal funding. So that's just part of the territory when you receive those dollars. And then for the Land and Water Conservation Fund, Kim, I'll leave it to you for an update there.
Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to kind of give a brief update after attending several training sessions with the grant administrator. So the Land and Water Grant Conservation Fund is actually considered a pass-through grant, meaning it's federal dollars that flow through the state of Missouri, who is charged with the administration of that grant. One of the things that we recently learned is that there has been some changes because this is actually part of Build Back America. The federal funding during this particular allotment has kind of some different program items that are associated with it. Kind of in the interest of time, long story short, after attending several training sessions, we learned that should the city pursue this particular grant funding, we would not be able to actually do any work at all on River Forest Park till after March 2025. This was a $500,000 grant, and because of that time horizon, actually those two timelines between the cities already awarded ARPA grant funding, we have to expend those dollars pretty much around the same time period would begin mobilization if we waited. So staff's professional recommendation is to not pursue this round of land and water grant funding just due to the threat of jeopardizing the ARPA grant funding. Just to recap, the city did receive $1.25 million in ARPA grant funding, and the other grant that we are pursuing was about $500,000.
I got a question on that then. So we've already claimed those dollars as revenue replacement, so we really don't need to do anything else with those dollars.
No, we
Correct.
actually have not received any of the ARPA funding. It is reimbursement. The city must expend before we can receipt back. So we have been awarded that money, meaning that the ARPA funding has been earmarked for us. We actually have to show that we are drawing down the funds, but that money, the ARPA funding, has been pretty much earmarked for the city of North Kansas City.
But we could have done that through that revenue replacement claim,
No,
right?
this is separate ARPA dollars.
Total separate.
This is state ARPA dollars.
The
I
sta-
think
oh,
you're,
got it.
you're
It's
thinking
state- I'm
of
thinking the federal ARPA
the
dollars.
city ARPA funding, which came
Yeah, from the
directly
federal.
to,
This is
right,
the state
this
pass-through.
is state pass-through monies.
Got it. Okay, that's
Correct.
the difference. Perfect.
Correct. So the city has actually already began our grant funding allocation, meaning that we are required to, on a quarterly basis, do some pretty hefty reporting as part of that state ARPA grant funding for this project. And we've already passed through our first one of those reports, so that's kind of fun. But like I said, so I just wanted to give you all kind of an update that kind of, and I have discussed this with several other people, that it's our recommendation that we not pursue the Land and Water Conservation Fund just due to the timing of it. We will keep that in mind for future projects, though.
Councilmember Smith.
So would we be able to pursue that grant outside of the bounds of this park project? Because, I mean, we could draw a hard line and say that's not part of the park. We're just going to shore up the back of people's yards so they don't erode away. Could we not dice those up?
One of the things that Will's going to discuss is the erosion as part of this particular project. The way that the Land and Water Conservation Fund is, you cannot disturb the land. We've actually already kind of, for the erosion part, that back area, we've already begun or at least scheduled the borings. So we're already outside of being able to pursue this particular grant funding because you cannot have disturbed the land before you turn in the application. The application is due December of this year.
So they don't want you to go cause erosion and then ask for money to fix it? Is that kind of the reasoning?
With this particular grant is it's really focused on projects that have not begun at all before you apply for this particular funding. So again, should this body say, Kim, we want you to pursue that, you'd be tabling this project for 18 months.
We don't want to delay the park, but I'm just curious, could we draw a line at the back edge of where we've done the park prep work and say, we're not messing with that, we're only going that direction to fix the hillside?
I would kind of defer to Will and his expertise, but some of what could happen is we'd actually be spending more money on this particular project because we'd be undoing some of the construction that we're doing as part of this. You wouldn't get an efficiency of scale when it comes to construction mobilization, and there's no guarantee that we would actually get this grant funding.
Should be a $500,000 roll of the dice.
I would, however, encourage the Parks Board, now that I've kind of undergone a lot of this training, any future project that you may wish, understanding there's a 2 to 3 year lead time. Happy to help the Parks Board with any future endeavor. Like I said, this particular grant has a significant lead time on it, meaning you need to identify, have done the public engagement, have done all of the federal components, which is all of the a lot of the reporting that will probably go under that is required for federal funding in advance 3 years out from when you want this project done. It's a considerable amount of work to pursue this particular one.
And we had, or I guess the city had looked at the Land and Water Conservation Fund, and some of the feedback that was received was that some of this additional assessment needed to be completed, and that was a weak area, I think, in the application. But it's something that, you know, as we do it now, with the federal dollars or the ARPA dollars, that it's a good idea to have that assessment done. There's not an explicit requirement, but from our experience, you want to have that in hand when you're doing improvements in areas like this. And, you know, in terms of the Land and Water Fund, they're looking at the entire property. So dividing it up and developing a portion of it wouldn't work for that purpose. So I guess to provide a little bit more background, the ARPA funding, you know, we came here last time, and when we learned that we were awarded the grant, we looked at the possibility of, you know, do we in effect use those ARPA dollars for the hill slope stability? Because there are particular, as Kim alluded to, there are particular reporting requirements with how you use those dollars, and it can be a pain in the butt depending on what explicitly you use those dollars for. So when we look at particular aspects of the River Forest Park project, such as the earthwork or some of the aspects of this hill slope stability, we're in effect, you know, using the dollars in a very particular way so that this stability study can be completed and that the improvements can come alongside the other park improvements that we're looking at today. So just a really quick refresh. Last time we looked at a few elements of the design, including the crossing at the creek, the overlook, which is actually a precast concrete structure. This is showing a little bit more of a wood. And then the combined, you know, restroom, shelter, and maintenance building here. You know, with our team, with our structural engineer and the manufacturer of these structure products, we're diving in deeper to the details of the overlook and the bridge. But we wanted to talk a little bit about the building today. The overall design is not changing, but we just wanted to give an update on that upper portion because it is shifting, and we've been over this with the city, but looking at, you know, zooming out a little bit from River Forest Park, there's actually kind of a stormwater outfall within the park that drains the red area up above that you see in the neighborhood. So the stormwater from the buildings and streets there are essentially going into the park. And that pipe is very steeply sloped, and it comes out, and there's evidence that it's causing erosion. There's kind of a ditch down there that we've surveyed. And then you can see on the picture in the right, it's filled in. And with the design, we're actually developing over this. So at first, we talked about basically extending this out, and there's some issues with that. It doesn't slow down the water. It doesn't necessarily fix the erosion problem, even if you armor that. So knowing that erosion and responsible water management are part of the goals of this project, we realized that we would be able to extend and retain some of that stormwater, essentially using the park as a little bit of a sponge to slow down the water as it moves through the site. So essentially that new purple line will be running stormwater from the current location actually out in front of the building, which has been rotated in a retention pond that will be planted in a similar way to a rain garden. So there will be pollinator-friendly plants and plants that really help absorb that water and slow it down. And then there will be a level spreader that slowly releases it. So this should actually reduce the kind of rate of discharge from the streets above into the river below. And then
I'd like
this
to
is
pause just real quick on this.
Sure.
I'm hoping that you see now that Will's kind of explained that by incorporating that erosion control into the design of this project, we actually are able to solve multiple issues at once. I know that it kind of stymies us and handcuffs us in one way by not allowing us to pursue grant funding for one hand. However, I hope that you can see through this mindful design that we're actually able to hit many of the council strategic plans by just realigning a few of the projects within this particular scope.
That's a good point. Thank you, Kim. So here it's just a little bit of a zoomed in detail that gives you a better picture of what's going on. So those different color blobs are actually part of the underlying planting plan, but and actually there's a little bit of a graphical error, but that blue line should be hitting the dash line should be hitting kind of the top left portion of that. The water will flow through and then over the hillside there. And then with the parking lot, we'll be capturing that water and feeding it into this same system and then out. The other advantage of rotating the building this direction is that it's more advantageous in the event that you all install solar panels on top of it. So the structure from the beginning has been designed to be solar ready. Actually putting those panels on is not part of this project currently, but it's something that is enabled for the future, and this rotation just optimizes how much energy you'd actually be able to harvest from solar panels should you do that in the future. And in the top right is just a little bit of a reminder of what used to be there. So same building and style, we've just rotated it, and it works a little bit better with that new water flow. And it becomes a great feature for the park as well. So jumping into the playground design, I wanted to show this imagery as a quick recap. So we had prepared some imagery for you all just as the basis of design as we issued an RFP on behalf of the city so that playground vendors that responded had this as additional information to help them form their proposals that they sent in. So we'll go over, there's no use in going over the old design, but just as a refresher of what you all have seen before and what informed the proposals that we got. And then we went through a pretty rigorous selection process. So we actually opened the RFP back in May, which I can't believe now that it is September. And that RFP outlined the design intent using some of the imagery and narrative, budget, and other requirements. We had 6 vendors submit, and over 12 designs were proposed. We helped filter that out a little bit, but ultimately the city shortlisted 2 vendors. So we went back and asked them to rehash some of the ideas in their proposals. And we went through a couple of rounds of iteration. We were considering design, warranties, lead times, customer service, other factors. And then the revised proposals, I know Amy and Victoria shopped them around a little bit to get some real-time on-the-ground feedback from kids and parents, and we used that to kind of work with the vendors to finalize their proposals. So through that process, Great Southern Recreation was selected as the preferred vendor. So we worked with them to even further iterate the design, which I think you all received copies of this advance. So hopefully you've had some opportunity to digest it a little bit. But if you compare it to what we saw before, we're getting very similar elements, just a different manufacturer. So we wanted to balance opportunities for more accessible elements, but also different climbing structures. There's opportunities for different ages and different kinds of motion play. So there's netting, balance logs, swinging steps, a zip line, things of that nature that have really carried through from the very beginning back when we were doing the feasibility study. So just kind of working through these really quickly, we've still got the embankment slide. We've got that zip line, which they're calling a cableway. That small 2 to 5 Robinia tower, and you'll see the word Robinia. I'll talk about it in a minute. That's the wood product. It's a hardwood. It's essentially a walnut. And then the climbing ramp has some climbing holds and a rope for traversing the play hill there. And then on the right side, there are a few elements such as the larger Robinia tower, so that's for older age groups. And then we've integrated a swinging steps piece with that, so it's actually 2 pieces there. And then we've got 2 different swings, which are pretty unique. So we've got a 2-post Robinia swing, which is more for the 2 to 5 age group. And then we've got a really cool cantilever swing, which has kind of a 360 spin radius, And then it's got additional posts for, climbing, jumping off of. I'm sure kids will find all kinds of ways to crawl all over that. But in total, max capacity of this playground, I'm trying to imagine 25 kids on that tower, but I
That was
have
gonna be
my
my
doubts.
question. Seemed
Yeah.
like a lot of kids.
Yeah. Theoretically, we've got enough play equipment for 63 kids to be running around in this playground. That would be absolutely bonkers. But just knowing, I think
One
that,
sec, we have a question if you're ready. Go ahead, please.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Hi, Valerie Swearens on the Parks Board. Just an overall question between this one and the last one. I know the last one was just a proposed rendering, but what's the surface? Is it a solid surface or is it like mulch or gravel or something? Is my first question.
So we are actually looking at a bonded rubber product. And there might be an image in here that shows it, but it kind of has the look of engineered wood fiber, which is kind of like those mulch chips, but it's actually a rubber product. And we are thinking about that. Oh, and I should say, not finalized as of right now. Surfacing was not part of the proposal process, even though it's something that we're thinking about. Your other option there is a poured-in-place rubber product. We've been talking about this bonded rubber because it doesn't have the tendency to crack in the same way. And we've been learning a little bit from this vendor that it does better in the kind of floodplain condition where things might be a little bit wetter. So still TBD, but we're leaning toward that. And there's a really nice cypress color that's kind of a more natural tan and brown mix. So we're thinking that we can achieve the advantages of that rubber surfacing, but have something that looks closer to the engineered wood fiber, which fits the context better, but you've got those maintenance advantages of the rubber product.
Okay. And is that stroller and wheelchair friendly?
It would be, yeah.
It would be? Okay, which kind of leads into my next question. The rendering before had at least two elements that could be inclusive, and this looks like there aren't any.
Yeah.
Can you help me understand if I'm just not looking at it right? Or
Yeah,
what
so-
pieces?
Yeah. The swings are two inclusive elements. That's why we went with the basket swings. We got some feedback about wanting traditional bucket swings, but it's pretty limiting. I mean, even if, it's even an age thing in addition to accessibility. So for example, a younger kid really could be on that cantilever swing if a parent was with them. It's just as easily used, and the bucket swings just aren't. And some of the other kind of accessible ideas here, so the embankment slide will be accessible. There's a transfer case that would be on that at the top, which isn't shown in the renderings. And then the small Robinia Tower and the large Robinia Tower, I'd have to inquire about a transfer for the larger one, but the smaller one would be at such a height that you could have a transfer onto that structure. Typically, you'll see that at the lower levels, there will be an opportunity to kind of switch onto the structure and access some of the play. But it would be true that, for example, the tallest slide there on the large Robinia Tower would not be accessible by definition. We actually looked at an option where we switched that over and tried to build a bridge over to it, and that bridge alone would have been like $70,000. So we looked at, how can we really maximize that, with that structure. And I think there's still opportunities to continue to think about that. But as of right now, that's what we're looking at for the accessible features.
Thank you. Councilmember Saper and Councilmember Smith.
I like the looks of it. The questions I have regard the service life of the wood components and the surface area and maintenance issues. What are they?
Yeah. So there will be a summary slide at the end, but in general, so one of the reasons that this proposal was selected was due to the warranty. So the out of ground, which we're actually going to be using a detail that keeps all of the wood out of ground, so that's going to have a 20-year warranty. The other shortlisted design only had a 10-year warranty. And then that's just for the wood product. Some of the stainless steel and the slides, things of that nature, those will have like a 30-year warranty, but those have a very long life. And then when we're looking at the surfacing, so for the bonded rubber or the poured in place, you're really looking at ideally within 5 years, you want to think about doing a top coat of that. That isn't always done, even though it should. So there's, recommended versus actual maintenance. But that's one of the reasons we're considering the bonded rubber, because the poured in place is very difficult to patch. It's much easier to patch the bonded rubber in-house. To get a good patch for the poured in place surfacing, for example, you typically want to, bring someone out to get that done. And even then, it doesn't always look that great. For fixtures and moving parts, so for the zip line, for example, those would be closer to like a 2-year warranty on that hardware. And then spare parts are typically 5 to 10 business days away if something does happen.
And how would that maintenance be performed? Would we have to have outside contractors come in on the zip line maintenance?
So within the warranty, I think you would have someone come in and do that replacement. Typically with some of these standard parts, you could have that done in-house as well. I think it just depends on the exact part that you're talking about.
What is the maintenance on the wood components?
So you can do like every other year you can do some kind of coating if you'd like, but this is a hardwood that it will withstand moisture and you really don't have to do any maintenance to it. I have a picture of this. It will gray over time, but it's a hardwood that is essentially maintenance free.
Councilmember Smith.
Can we talk a little bit about shade options here? This comes after a couple weeks of 100+ degrees, and being out in the sun is excruciating.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I actually tried today to fit an additional slide about that in here, and I was too late. So I don't have an image that speaks to that. So these graphics, I can't remember if I mentioned, were produced by the vendor and not by us, so there's some details missing here. I think on one hand, the canopy surrounding the playground is actually pretty dense. On the other hand, we're also looking at placing some trees. If you can see my cursor here, kind of over. So we're actually going to be placing some lounge chairs here potentially, and then we're planting shade trees in an arc kind of over that sitting area. As of right now, there's not any line item in the budget for any kind of shade sail or structure like that. If you're if you're in the tower, versus some of the other options we looked at, you've got that wood paneling, so you're a little more enclosed within that structure. But overall, we're pretty confident with the amount of dense woods that are surrounding this, that during those peak afternoon hours, you are going to start catching some shade, and then especially in the evening. I mean, the trees out there are 40, 50 plus feet tall, and the renderings don't do a great job of communicating that.
Yeah, these look like seedlings,
Yeah.
but understandably so. You
Yeah.
don't want to just do a rendering of a bunch of treetops.
Yeah.
That's good to know. The only other piece is you mentioned some lounge chairs. That's great. The bench in the middle, there's maybe like 2 seats on it. I know the parents will flock to that one. Could we make it double-sided or add another longer space to it?
Yeah, so that was another part of the shade seating drawing that I was hoping to slide in here because we thought we might get that question. And it is a great one. So in here, we're proposing 2 benches. We're proposing another couple of lounge benches over here. And then we're proposing some limestone block seating around the kind of edges here at the end. And the rendering doesn't capture this, but this will actually be a seat wall along here between the two. So this rightmost portion is actually sunk down a little bit from the walk above it. And then there's another seat wall out here. So I did a count today. Our seating capacity is about 30 adults if you had 2 people sitting on a bench.
There we go.
There you go.
So,
That answers that, and hopefully shade with the seating, because every park or every spot around Mackin, when there's sun on a bench, nobody sits on it, and when the sun hits like the Howell Street playground, the kids and parents all flock to the one corner that still has trees covering it. So I would just hate to see this all left open and nobody using the parts that are in the sun.
yeah, and so, the blocks at this end here, they're going to be sitting right underneath some of that canopy that we were just talking about, and then we're looking at planting an additional kind of, I think, 3 or 4 trees along this, where those lounge chairs and then these benches will be underneath that as well, so.
I guess back to Board Member Swearingen's question, and this is really for everybody here. Do we feel like there's enough inclusive equipment in what we're seeing? Because, I mean, this is kind of the opportunity for us to do something from scratch that we generally don't have a whole lot of right now, or if much of any. Board Member Swearingen.
Yeah, and that was part of my question, because we're trying hard to retrofit some of our existing parks to be more inclusive, and I just don't want to come in here and not have as much as we should, even if it's like sensory things attached to some of these poles, or is it easy enough for us to add them a year from now if we come up with the budget? Are there pieces we can add to it? Because it's just and I harp on this subject every time it comes up. I just want to make sure it's noted.
No, there's definitely good opportunities. We're kind of clean slating this here to do what we want to see in this. Any further feedback on that item? Nope, keep going. Oh, Councilmember Tillell.
I would just say, I think it's easier to do it now while
Yeah.
you're doing it than come back in a year to do it. And I think some creative ideas, like you said, even to add texture or other things at the ground level that are engaging. And the limestone seating in an area where there's already canopy full growth is a great idea. It doesn't have to be a structured bench. The limestone might be perfect. Just like you said, a place that's shaded.
Great. Thank
Next
you.
slide.
Yeah, so we had some detail views here, but I think I'll just walk through these really quickly, unless they spark any additional questions. Just gives you a little bit more sense. And it might look like, oh my gosh, there's a ton of space. The safety zones for a 360 cantilever swing is pretty nuts. So that's part of the space that you're seeing there. And then this one, I think it's important to talk about this. The structure does have a lean, and that is intentional. That is part of the design. We've gotten some questions about this throughout. I think some really fun comments about it as well. So the top left isn't exactly the same as the one that is in the rendering. It doesn't have the slide, but it shows a little bit more of that balance play. And then it shows a little bit more of that quality of the wood. The cantilever swing, and then that climbing ramp with the rope and the holds as well. We talked about maintenance before. Again, so this is a Robinia hardwood product. It's a very popular product for wood playgrounds. Again, it's a hardwood. It's going to be able to withstand the activity of play, withstand moisture, resistant to rot, and then we're going to be actually putting metal footings on this so that the wood actually isn't in the ground. Part of that is due to the floodplain, part of that is due to it being at the bottom of the slope, just keeping it high and dry. And we did confirm with all of our wood manufacturers that its location in the floodplain would not impact any warranties, so we expect the full warranty to come with this equipment as well. So on the left, that's kind of a, maybe year 1 look, and then, by year 3 to 5, depending on, exactly how the sun's hitting it, all that, it'll kind of gray out a little bit. There are options to stain it. There's some first cost with some of those options to put a more protective coating on it. And then there's also the option on an ongoing basis to revisit that every other year, I think is the recommendation. So just a quick fact card. The equipment price came out at $215. We outlined $225 in the RFP. And that is, we left some of that in reserve. We talked about adding some additional sensory elements. We do have some reserve budget, but we had to grow the footprint to accommodate everything we're showing a little bit. So we want to make sure that we're being cost conscious as we go forward. So with the next CD set, we're going to be doing a cost exercise where we can revisit the kind of capacity for switching out equipment, or if we could fit in a couple of those other sensory elements and just look at that in the context of the overall budget. Sorry.
All the pictures show spring and summer scenes. We have two other seasons,
Yes.
fall and winter.
Yes.
How does that play into it? I mean, we have warm days in the winter, but there can be snow on the ground. How easy is it to clear the snow away so that it can be used in the winter on those warm days? Things like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Year-round usability.
So we've provided, I'll back up a little bit. So this winding access here was actually designed for pedestrian friendliness, and then we realized that that's not something a Kubota can make. So we're actually providing, it's not shown in the play rendering, but we're providing additional maintenance access so that a Kubota can get down there and help with clearing snow. It might be hard to maneuver around some of this equipment, but in terms of getting snow or ice chipped away and off in the corner and letting the Kubota push it to whatever corner, we've provided that maintenance access, and then that bonded rubber material is something that you'll be able to shovel or whatever you need to do to clear snow from that. In terms of on the structure, I would say there's probably not going to be much of a difference between the wood and the metal in terms of slippage in the rain or snow. There are some options in certain instances where we could add some of that. We could add some texture to that for some pieces, not all. But the other option would be considering that kind of black adhesive surfacing to that, which we're averse to that just in the sense of, you're with the wood playground, I think we want to highlight that, and that's the tactile thing that kids are going to be grabbing onto and running on. So it's not going to be any more slippery than a kind of traditional post and deck playground, and there's opportunities to get equipment down there to help
I
things out.
see a hand there.
Victoria, we don't clear the snow off of our regular playground equipment, do we?
No, so they've accommodated to be able to get the Kubota down there and for
to
different
clear the
maintenance
path,
items.
right?
Right, to clear the path.
Kids will take
but-
care of the rest.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, especially Councilmember Smith's kid there. I've seen the videos.
Oh, yeah. That's her favorite thing to do. I actually did.
Yeah, but go ahead.
To follow up on the accessibility, the zip line, is there a seat that could be put on the zip line that allows accessibility? I've seen there's a type of swing seat, and I think I've seen zip lines that incorporate this. Is that something that is looked at? I can't really tell what's being used on the zip line now.
Yeah, so that is something that that could be done. Right now, it's basically like a disc, like you can just step onto it and grab on and slide down the zip line that way. I think that's something that we can certainly look at. It makes it accessible. I think that changes the experience for other kids. So it's something that, as you kind of open up that question, I would be curious on hearing kids' thoughts about the seat, or if there's some way that could be easily interchangeable, depending on the situation. But it's certainly a possibility to swap out the attachment to the zip line there.
I believe there's one like that at the Kansas City Zoo, if I'm recalling correctly,
Yeah,
as well.
That's the one I was thinking of.
And I know my kids have used that as
They have
well.
they'll just climb all over it and do the
Yeah.
zip line as well. So
Okay. But yes, that's something that we can look into.
Councilmember Perez.
Yeah, sorry, had a quick question. I think they.
You just want to turn that mic a little bit there so everyone at home can hear you as well. There we
Is
go.
that better? Yeah.
Yep.
I think it had been covered before, but the materials on the slide, I think those, if this metal would be, absorb the heat, be really hot, was there any kind of special coating that you guys were gonna try to put on that so that
Yeah.
it's not shaded, it gets real hot.
Yeah. So I think what's interesting, we've actually done some temperature studies now of different materials. The plastic gets just as hot. A wood bench in the sun gets just as hot as a metal bench, actually. So we like the metal from the durability standpoint and the fact that that appearance is going to look better over time. The plastic tends to kind of fade out and get scratched up, and the metal will get dinged and everything. But it's kind of that durability and warranty question. And so I think it's something to think about. The other slide is a tube slide, so the sun's not. It'll be a little hot in there, but the surfacing itself's not going to be getting the sun directly as well. And this is west facing, so it's really that, if you're here in the morning or even at noon, it's not going to quite be heated up until that, very hottest part of the afternoon. And at that point, on days like we've had recently, activity might be pretty low at the playground anyway. But so it's definitely an important consideration, but we feel pretty confident that the material choice there doesn't impact the temperature as much as people think it does.
Thank you. All right, so we are on to discussion. So I got it regarding playground. So are we deciding on this equipment package tonight?
That is, yes.
Is that the goal? Okay.
Yes, to issue the purchase order.
So, we've already been on the playground equipment, so I think we should go ahead and probably finish that conversation here since that's the freshest with everybody.
Sure.
Are we good with this package? Do we want to modify this package? Do we want to add more inclusive or swap something out for something exclusive? Inclusive. I said exclusive. Inclusive. What is the direction here? Please.
I guess I just need a little bit more direction. If we want something extra, do we have to wait until our next joint meeting to make that decision? Are we running into timing
I was thinking about that. If we want to move more nimbly, why could we not subcommittee this or task force this and have a limited amount of council members, limited amount of Parks Board members, and meet at a more regular basis to move this thing forward a little faster as well? There's not a problem with that, right? Beyond the fact we'd have to choose who is doing that.
Will, can you go to the previous slide?
Sorry,
So
That's
just
off your
so
hands.
it takes 20 to 24 weeks to order this equipment.
Yeah,
So
that's
just keep that in mind. We'll kind of show the other timeline. If you guys are willing to work through a subcommittee, I think we are as well. We are almost at the budget. So for the park budget, we were at $225,000 for the playscape. So we have about $10,000 left within reserve, considering the bids that have come in. Again, we were leaving that for some of the flooring.
some of that would be also potentially swapping out equipment, so it'd kind of be, I guess, a substitute, really.
That would be a question. We
Depends on the equipment,
We would
yeah.
study, as Kim was just mentioning, there is room left in the original budget, but in keeping with the overall project budget, we're trying to hold that for additional surfacing. Surfacing was not part of the proposal here, so swapping or adding are two avenues we can explore if needed. But some of these smaller pieces, we're talking about a couple thousand a piece for a few of these.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I guess I have no idea. She'll follow on,
Yeah,
please.
I was just going to say, I don't feel comfortable saying I want to say yes to this package as is because it's excluding a group of potential kids right next to a hospital that may have visitors, and that just makes my heart a little bit sad. But if there's a way we could add, like the snail thing that was in the original design that had a path under it that wheelchair accessibility could go through or something like that, if that's minor, if we could modify it. I don't know. I just don't feel comfortable as is that we're not doing more inclusive.
Agree, there's some work to do here. Councilmember Smith.
Yeah, you guys did really sell us on that snail. I was excited. The other question would be, have we approached any community partners about, I know there are groups that do accessible play elements that, I don't know if they contribute or they partner with playgrounds that are being built. I believe Variety Casey, and then other community partners. I've spoken with some people at BNSF Railroad who they like to sponsor playgrounds, like throw a little sign honoring that they contributed and then adding into this. So have we talked to anybody, or are we just kind of doing this on our own? Like, have we reached out?
So I don't think we have reached out, but a lot of that also had to do with the grant funding that the city was able to secure from the federal government.
Sure.
I mean, we are more than willing to explore a lot of those avenues. Again, some of it would elongate this timeline.
Sure. I mean, I don't know if they already have a standing, like, if there are groups that do the accessible stuff, like already have contributed to, say, the zoo has a great playground, KCI has the play structure in the new, maybe they're already set up to go, and we just ask. I don't know. But it would be worth checking, because this really could use more accessible elements, and if we can do it with help from community partners, that would be great.
Councilmember Tull.
How much do you think you need to reserve for the ground, for the flooring?
I can't say exactly at this time. We need to work through our next milestone is later this month. We preliminarily worked through the additional footprint required, and we've reserved that kind of 10,000 as a hopefully conservative buffer on the additional surfacing that's going to be needed. It could be less than that, but we have to work through some other, we had to adjust some other aspects of the design that are going to have an impact, and we haven't worked through all of those just yet.
So, Kim, would it be possible, because I know that they have been meeting on this in a smaller committee, would it be possible for us to give the go-ahead to order if they're able to incorporate more accessible features within a certain dollar amount so that it doesn't hold it up, but also we don't build it without the accessible features?
That's kind of, that was an idea that I had, because I really do like it. And some of the sensory features could possibly be add-ons to the posts or
Up that little
incorporated
hillside?
to what we've got and still be in keeping with what we're looking at. But I don't want to keep waiting and modifying and tweaking, especially if we've got a little bit of money that could be used to create a more accessible environment, because I really do like it.
I really do too, and I agree. I don't think that you necessarily have to have a larger footprint to squeeze in quite a few more cool features.
Yeah. All right, other comments. What else we got? I mean, we're still kind of at a...
Are we headed though in the direction of we like the layout? If I heard you guys, we like the layout, we like what we see, but just maybe getting a better checkbox of can we add, sensory features around it. There was also, not to open up a whole other can of worms, but I will, but we discussed the possibility of an additional sort of play space above, and we did not take that, we didn't do the go-ahead, but just, I'm saying for future planning, that still may be something to think about and expand upon if we find that, because I will say that the hospital does have a play area for, they do have a playground that's up there connected to the hospital, but, just things like that to think about that I think adding on to what's existing without sort of redesigning, please don't make us redesign this. And then just kind of adding on, I think is a really good plan, because we really did make those strategic choices with the swings. Against a couple kiddos' dreams and wishes of wanting, a singular swing, but just kind of opening that to say, and it is marked accessible. And I know there's some stuff that was marked accessible that we still don't understand how it was. It was just like a random platform on a hill, and it was just like, that counts. And we're like, well, we know. Will knows. But I just feel like if we're all open to this, I'd like us to decide to say, yes, we like the direction we're going. We've chosen it based off of warranty, the look, everything kind of meets all the check boxes of all the surveys in the beginning that I'd like to see us decide, and then think about any additional things that we can do to enhance what exists, if everybody's good with that.
We'd also talked about potentially substituting some out, at least some commentary I heard, so that would kind of change.
Today would be approval to do the PO for the equipment as shown. In that route, we'd be talking more additive of these smaller pieces, but if we, purchase what's here, there wouldn't be that opportunity to substitute. And one reason we want to, get that rolling now is to just lock in the pricing that we've received as well. If we, the longer that we wait on this, there's, pretty much 100% chance it's going to be more expensive the next time we get the quote on it. So that's the other aspect.
How long's
as
the
well.
quote good for? Did you say that already?
What's that?
How long's the quote good for?
I do not have that right in front of me at this time. Typically, you'll see something like 60 to 90 days.
And when did you get this?
Maybe about a month ago.
I want to
a
say it's
little
the
over a
end of
month ago.
June.
Well, we got a revised one with the additional pieces. So as of August, we've gotten a new quote.
Do you think you could pick amongst your populace kind of somebody to represent your thoughts, and we could have further conversations about what the final would look like within a timely manner to still hold true this pricing and this design?
I do think that would be appropriate to split out if a few council
They-
members want to do it, a
they
couple
have a
park board
small-
members.
They have a
Mean
small
small
group
group.
that's been meeting already, so just who's a member of that? I mean,
Yeah, that's, if we're trying to get like, yeah, we just bounce, yeah. Or if Valerie just wants to go on, then we're at 1 and 1. Sorry, I kind of volunteered you there. You seem to be on top of it. Unless there's objections. Okay, we got more waving here. Council member. Oh, you want? So we got 1, 2. Do we want to add another Parks Board member? Go 2 council, 2 parks. Call it a day. Oh, I'll let you all split that one up. No one else in council, so I'm out.
Paper, rock, scissors.
We got our 2.
so Kim, if we approve this, can we also say with our blessing, you can add on up to a dollar amount so they can order it all at the same time?
I think so. Like I
And
said,
so what would you feel comfortable with dollar amount
I
wise?
think our dollar
allowing
amount is
us-
at 225. Again, we have a semi-set budget, so for the playscape, we are budgeting 225,000.
Okay, so
for
we
the
can
playscape.
move to approve with the amendment that we are enabling $225,000 budget.
I think, Will, and sorry to put you on the spot, I think our hope would be to have this decision made by the end of this month. Am I correct on that?
But yeah, we were hoping to get that approval at this meeting.
I would just, does
But
that
With a smaller group,
motion
hopefully,
work?
if we have a
Move
few
to
days
approve?
buffer here, then hopefully a smaller group is able to knock out whatever else you have going on in a very short period,
And
I would
just to
hope.
kind of wind back the reason why this decision, it's not just to address we need to purchase the playscape. It plays into the no-rise permit. We need to know everything that is in this area so that the Army Corps of Engineers can look at it for the no-rise certification that is required because this is in a floodplain. So I hate to say it, there are a lot of moving pieces that are built off that when you move one piece, it starts to move everything. That's why there's a lot of phasing and a lot of, okay, we need this answer so that the next decision maker can make their decisions.
Did we decide on a second Parks Board member?
Beth or Kat?
Beth.
Kat Stanley. Okay, perfect. Okay, so we got Councilmember Clark, Stokes, Swearingen, and Stanley, right? All right, then they will finalize this. If that is good with everyone here, then we will call that portion good, but we're not done yet. Now we're going to go back to order again, which is Stormwater General Design Update. No, you did that. What other discussion is there related to that?
If there was any concerns or comments about the approach, I think that was more an informative update, that we've moved some things around. We went through the playground discussion, and then next steps, we just issued 25% construction documents last week. Our next milestone is 50% construction documents. A cost exercise will shortly follow, so that is where we're going to dive a little bit deeper into looking at the additional surfacing versus the overall equipment budget, figuring out just making sure that we're still on track. And then we're working on the no-rise study now, as Kim has mentioned, looking at the impact of the design on the water flow throughout the site. And then with that additional task order for the hill slope stability study, ongoing coordination for that.
There we go. Councilmember Tull.
I have one clarifying question. So we have decided that this small committee is approved to go and make a purchase up to $225,000, and it does not have to come back to us. They're able to do that, right?
I'm not opposed. I didn't see any others opposed to this.
Okay.
Staff's understanding is we're hoping we're not
Yes.
wrong.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to make sure, because there wasn't
want
a
like
Okay,
a-
it's
vote or
fine.
anything
One
like
last
that,
chance.
so-
Anybody opposed to this? And there's no. Connor looked undecided. No, I'm fine. Connor is good. Yeah. Just make sure you get that in the mic.
It's $225,000 for the playscape,
For the
for
equipment.
just the playground equipment, not the stuff that goes under it. No.
All right, we're just waiting on your blessing. You good?
Yeah, which is what
Okay.
was budgeted, just to be clear. It's not a new number.
There we go. Then hopefully that they're able to work. You're not scheduling everyone at once. We're good on that. Last thing you have is next steps, or did you just do that?
I just
Complete no rice study, ongoing coordination, hillside borings, and a few other things. Thank you. We rifled through that
thank
pretty
you.
fast there. I appreciate that, and thank you, Parks Board members, for coming out this evening.
All right.
There. I know. And if there's. Look, we're all okay with the idea. We need to kind of wherever you go do it. What are you grabbing? Oh. Every project feels that. I'm feeling that way about everything we do, I think. I mean to pick on you there, Connor. You're the only one that looked uncertain. I figured you didn't have strong opposition.
Well, right now I have.
Okay. I was like, it wasn't negative, it wasn't positive either. I wasn't sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Very nice, very nice. We will see how a few of these others go, and then we can look at that route. Just flag me. I'm very open to that.
Shu will be advancing for you. May I go?
Or just, yeah. I don't know what the motion is for that. She got this, like, I don't know what she's doing over there. Next item is number 9. I'm giving Amy like 30 more seconds. And then we will introduce, maybe I'll go ahead and introduce it anyways. Number 9. Perfect. NKC Business Council presentation, which I already see Julie here up at the podium and ready to go. Good evening. How are you?
Good. Are we
Good.
ready?
We're ready.
Okay. Hi, my name is Julie Sola. I am representing the North Kansas City Business Council. I'm also the general manager of Harris Casino, just right down the road. So thanks for allowing me to present today. We've all discussed, we put together like a 30-minute presentation, so I hope you guys are ready. Just kidding. We're going to try to go
Yes, I was
as
gonna cut her
fast
off.
as humanly possible. So many of you are familiar with the North Kansas City Business Council, but also there's probably several of you that aren't. So we wanted to take a quick opportunity just to kind of share with you a little bit about the Business Council, what we try to do, and then we have an ask. The city has graciously provided us some additional funds every single year that we have asked for them. So we want to share what we used the funds last year and then what we would like to request this year. So we were organized in 1993, so we're celebrating 30 years this year. We actually have a luncheon coming up celebrating the businesses that have been part of this organization for 30 years. We are a 501c6 nonprofit corporation. We are similar to a chamber of commerce. We have 240 business members. We have an executive director, Rich Groves, who you probably all know, and 2 part-time associates. And then it's also governed by an executive committee and a board of directors. So on the next slide that you guys will probably see just gives you an example of the people that are on the executive committee along with the staff. Then we have our board members by sector. So our board members are broken down by retail, industrial, services, professional, and at large. So we have a few board members here that have graciously blessed us with their presence. Mike Hayes, Jason Crowley, and Brooks Brown in the back. So very grateful that they all came to support. So what do we do? As a business council, there's 3 things that we really try to focus on. We inform, we assist, and we connect. And we are constantly having new businesses join our organization. So some of the things that we do when we inform, we send an e-newsletter following every city council meeting. Rich does a really nice job recapping what has been discussed, and so any of our members get that recap. We have other e-newsletters and emails to inform our businesses, both interesting and urgent issues that go out. We have continuous website content updates, printed newsletter to those that we don't reach regularly through our website, since everyone gets their information in different manners. We do have an annual business directory listing all North Kansas City businesses that's both printed and online. We have monthly luncheons with informative programs that many of you have been to, and then we also have our website, nkcbusinesscouncil.com. Assisting, we offer opportunities for networking. We offer opportunities for promoting businesses, and we are attentive and responsive to issues that might be causing problems for members. And finally, we connect. So we respond to business concerns by identifying and connecting with the individuals who can help. I'll give a small example. I just reached out to the Business Council to try to find somebody that could provide us some additional lighting for some stuff that was happening at Harrah's, and it was a really quick way for me to find a local business in North Kansas City that even Harrah's could reach out to and support. We have networking opportunities. We have monthly luncheons and First Friday coffees. Weekly Northland Coffee Connect. This is recognizing and supporting entrepreneurs. Great opportunity to network with some of those new businesses. Again, I mentioned the business directory, and we have active involvement with Northland CAPS, Clay County EDC, North Kansas City School, Career Pathways, and other workforce and economic development support organizations. So some of our luncheon programs that we had this year, entrepreneurship. Kathy Nelson came for Visit KC and KC Sports Commission. North Kansas City Parks and Rec, who we just heard from. Women Leaders in Business. Just a couple of weeks ago, we had Congressman Emmanuel Cleaver. We are going to be celebrating 30 years investing in North Kansas City next month. We have the State of the Cities, and then the final one will be about the Endless Game, the Guinness Book of World Records that just happened. So the North Kansas City Business Council, we're proud to serve North Kansas City businesses and really have a partnership with all of you. North Kansas City's 900-plus businesses provide 80% of the revenue that enables superior amenities. So if you go to the next slide, this is just a sampling of businesses in each one of your wards, and I'll let you take a look at that so you can see some of the businesses that happen to be in each of the wards. One of the things that we talked about in the strategic plan meeting that we just had for the North Kansas City Business Council was really creating a better partnership with all of you. And so we're really looking forward to that starting next year. So last year, you awarded us $35,000 towards our mission, and you can see we have listed all of the funds and all the costs that were associated with what you provided us. We want to be very transparent to show you kind of how your funds are used. In total, we spent $40,268, so the remainder of that was made up by the North Kansas City Business Council. This year, we are actually requesting less money. We're requesting $5,000 less, so we're looking for $30,000. We have just tried to evaluate some cost-saving opportunities of things that we would probably do differently this year. One of them is to reduce the number of printed newsletters to semi-annually rather than quarterly, and we'll continue to look at ways that we can be more efficient and effective as a business. So we really want to take this opportunity to thank you for your continuous support, through our business council and really making our community great. And we're very grateful to have this relationship with the city. So I will stay up and answer any questions if anyone has one.
Thank you. Appreciate the presentation. I'll say it's pretty rare that someone actually comes up here and asks for less money than they did previously. So also noted. Thank you. And you're staying busy. What did you say your role is now with the business council?
Well, I will be the president next year, so.
You got chair of EDC, president of business council. You are.
I'm very busy.
Very
I'm going
busy.
back to a concert right when we're done, so we're even busier.
Always moving.
At the casino, so.
Appreciate the update. Further questions? Any further questions? Seeing none. Thank you. Appreciate
Okay,
you coming this
thank you.
evening. Next item, 2023-2024 proposed budget discussion. This is really just kind of the continuation of our previous items. And if council had anything they want to discuss, which that was very quick, Councilmember Clark.
Hi.
Hi.
Just it was called out more in a note, so I just went ahead and went back through the big Bible here, financial Bible for the vehicle request for police on the actual capital. And I took Kim's book, so good, you have another one. It shows, at the beginning, $277,000 to patrol SUV hybrid SUVs. The sergeant's truck, I didn't know that we went ahead and decided. I know when the truck happened the first time, I wasn't quite on council. There was a budget for it, and then there was a budget for 2 vehicles, and they purchased a truck instead, and then your vehicle got stolen. What's the story? There was like a whole thing that happened. Did this not happen? Did your vehicle get taken from your house?
I don't know why you had to bring that up.
It's really good. Just go through the archives. But the truck. I mean, if my memory serves, which I could be misremembering, but there was a budget for 2. Then it was a truck was purchased, and that was a surprise. Then a vehicle was stolen, and then
So you gotta go at it again.
Okay.
You had to bring it up again.
Yeah.
Not exactly. It would be my answer. The stolen vehicle was several years ago. The truck was in this current fiscal year's budget. We didn't get it purchased because we missed the buying window. So what we did back then is we decided to go with 2 cars instead of the truck this fiscal year, knowing that the truck window could open up again before this budget cycle came up again. I hope I'm answering your question right. So then about a month ago, we were able to get a truck. We were able to source a truck for us. So we came to you and asked you to amend our current fiscal year capital budget to account for that truck. So the truck will actually come off of this next year's budget. We're not asking for another truck. So, and I think Mr. Hawkins included that in the communication. That should be like $43,000 less of the $277 that was the original ask.
I think I was just questioning, how did we get to truck in the first place many years ago? Right? Like, it was many years ago before I got on council.
Sure.
So how long have I been up here?
The truck is utilized by our patrol supervisor, who has to carry around a lot of more gear than the standard patrol
officer has to carry. So the truck is beneficial for them to carry that extra gear around, and also for transporting any gear that we recover also. Any gear, any stolen property that we recover, anything like that. It just was useful for us to have a bigger vehicle for those type of things, and that's why we transitioned to the truck several years ago, for
Okay.
that one purpose only.
Okay, so then the 277 that's in the capital improvement, this part, that is minus 43,000 now, going forward, because you need the money for now, right? Did I hear that? That's the number you threw out there, 43,000?
So the actual budget number for this capital line for our vehicles is 43,000 less than 277. I don't do math that quick.
Okay, but then there's also a police vehicles line that says 170.
That's a recurring line. That's not in this particular.
It was a duplicate, so it's
got a
showing
number.
it's showing it as a negative that we caught that and pulling it out.
So that is being pulled out?
Yeah.
Okay, I just missed that part. Because I was like, guys, no, it's there. And I was just wondering who's buying a $170,000 vehicle. Sweet.
We're just budgeting for stolen vehicles.
Okay, okay, that's it. We're all done there. Remember that time when the vehicle got stolen from us? Okay.
No, tell us. No, please don't. Okay, further, Mike, did you have something? You look like you were going to kick that off there.
Related to vehicles, semi-related to this budget. Yeah, it's a great time.
Okay.
I'll
there.
let you.
Oh, nice transition. I was wondering if you were going to bring up trucks.
Well, so we learned Friday afternoon, very late Friday afternoon, that the window for ordering government electric trucks has just reopened. It's only open for a very short time. It's actually going to close in 3 days on September 8th. So it will not give us the opportunity to bring it back to council on September 19th. Public Works currently has 5 vehicles, 5 light-duty trucks in this year's budget that we've been looking at EVs for. Learning the cost, waiting and understanding the government windows, which has been an interesting thing. We've moved them all to next year's budget for an increase of to $100,000 for each vehicle. Currently, we have the opportunity, if we wanted to take advantage of this window, we could utilize this year's budget. And last time we talked about this, we talked about getting 2 trucks, one for the Transportation Division and one for the Water Services Division, trying them out, learning, there's going to be a lot of learning curve here with these, and then keeping the other ones in next year's budget to move for the other 3. So basically what we'd be asking for tonight is kind of a budget not necessarily an amendment, just because we would have the budget authority right now for 5 vehicles, but using that to utilize that to buy 2 vehicles this year, place the order, lock in the purchase order tomorrow, basically, with the dealership, and then, again, look for the other 3 next year.
Chief Hargis, you have something to add?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Well, I'm going to really confuse the pot here because we had $50,000 in this year's budget to purchase a replacement truck for our fire marshal. The window wasn't going to open. We had looked at electrics, but they were too expensive. The window wasn't there. We were, last week, his vehicle was involved in a hit and run, potentially going to be totaled at this point, and we were looking at getting the authority to buy one off the lot, a regular truck. However, in those discussions today, we found out we had the option to purchase an electric vehicle if we could get approval to purchase that tonight, and then we would bring back a budget amendment for that, the additional $15,000 at the next council meeting.
And I'm liking this number a little bit better than what we had before as well. Councilmember Smith.
So what is the price in this window? Like, what are we looking at spending?
So the price now is $65,560 per truck.
And and we're looking at 100,000 next year per truck?
Well, so I'm summarizing not very well, a year-long like roller coaster of prices. So
Sure.
They went up. We said, okay, we'll throw them the next year's budget, increase it, try to cover it, because for a while we were looking at $89,000.
Yeah, they've come down just in the last
quite a
little bit.
Yes.
And
yeah.
the Fords also came out again with the ability to purchase through the cooperative purchasing plan.
Yeah.
That's where a lot of that reduction has come from.
Seems like a no-brainer. I mean, I'm in favor if everybody else is.
Any opposition? We'll go that route. Any opposition?
Just to be-
Seeing none. Okay.
Just to be clear, the 3 for $100,000 would still be in next year's budget. When the order window opens back up for 24, which we're thinking is probably going to be around June, July, we'd still have those 3 in next year's budget. and would
And
move
and
on
you
to
have a budget amendment for us next meeting.
well, for Dave.
For
Yeah.
Dave's.
Yours will have a budget
For
amendment.
I will
Fire
have a budget
department.
amendment next meeting.
Perfect. Works for me. Thank you.
Let's go.
Further budget. Councilmember Stokes, was that a? How many, we got, you're getting two.
If you look at the budget right now, what you'd see is 3 for 23, not for 24, but for fiscal year 23, the one that ends here in October, you'd see 5 vehicles for $60,000 each. When they increased, we increased the budget for next year for 100,000, but now that they're back towards 65, we can utilize 120-ish thousand, 130,000 of that to buy 2 trucks this fiscal year in 23. No, I'm walking through it myself.
You get a truck.
No, yeah.
You get a truck.
There was a lot of numbers being thrown around and stolen vehicles. I was losing track here, what we got going on. It's 17 trucks, I don't know. Okay,
3 trucks total now, 3 trucks next year.
there we go. We good? We good? We good? We good? Oh, thumbs up. Okay, perfect. Further budget discussion here, still on this item. Anything from staff? Anything from, Councilmember Stokes got one here. What do we got?
I do just have a quick question on trees. I love trees. I have a shirt that says I hug trees. Love them. Want to make sure that that is very clear. In February, we approved the $100,000 for this last year, and we learned that the price of trees does increase when we have a higher amount. But also, I'm wondering if there's a need. I mean, it seems like you can throw a tree anywhere, but I have heard neighbors and people say, I hate that city tree, I want to poison it, or I don't want one in my yard, things like this. So I'm just wondering if there is a need for this large amount. We've increased it from 30,000 to 100,000. I just want to know going forward if there is a need for that, and if there is, let's continue forward, or if we need to put it in towards maintenance, adjust the numbers somehow, something.
So we do some Ward 4 I Love Tree shirts. We need a few more up there.
So
What do you
I
got
guess
on
just to
trees?
comment on that, so the $100,000 is for planting new trees, whereas the other money is in for maintenance of trees. I would say that, the $100,000 is very adequate. We, not only in the residential areas, but citywide, that money's for citywide, so, there's a lot of different places where we can plant trees, so. I'm sorry.
Oh, you mean for it? Oh, we always find places forever. And no, it seems like there's plenty of gaps, whether it be park, because periodically people are bringing out parks as well, and can we put more around the track, or, we're constantly replacing dead trees as well, and there's quite a few gaps now, so.
Parks and right-of-way citywide, so down the Paseo Industrial District, different commercial areas, there's plenty of,
Yeah, so far we found places, like going all the way up and down Swift, or do we rectify some of those now? We're starting to clean that up.
We still have to figure out how to reuse the old planters in a way, but
Oh,
might
see,
be.
more room.
there's always going to be a place for planting a tree, yeah.
There we go. Someone over here. There. Councilmember.
Question about a on-staff arborist. That is not in the budget, correct?
Correct. We did kind of analysis on looking at that. We currently have 3 different arborists that we have 3 options for different arborists that we reach out to now with our on-call services. 1 through the Department of Natural Resources, and then 2 with our on-call maintenance resources. So we have quite a selection to choose from, I guess, when it comes to arborist. We looked at staffing and, what more would we get out of that. We actually determined, we probably get quite a bit of service from the options we have now. But we did, in the conversation, start to explore the idea of training some of our in-house crew to actually get certified as ISA arborist. That's something we want to explore next year.
Okay, thank you.
Further budget. Questions, comments, concerns? If not, then this will be back for final approval at the next meeting. I think, yes. Got 2 head nods. All right, next item, please.
I'm going to real quick
Number-
pause on that one. Just, I'm putting in a note that we also have to adopt the levy and we have not gotten those calculations from the county just yet. So please watch your emails. We may or may not need to schedule a special session. It has been several years since we've had to do this, but again, we have not received those calculations just yet. There is a posting by state statute in the newspaper, and that's what sometimes doesn't make it so that we could do it on a regularly scheduled meeting. So just watch your emails. We're hoping to get those determinations soon that would allow us to do this at one meeting, which is your next meeting.
That'd be fantastic. Councilmember Smith.
Given the recency of the reassessments and the large, Connor can talk about that a little bit, large jumps in property values become a hot topic, do we have any say in that number once it's given to us? We either yes or no.
I don't think we don't have to adopt that number, though. We can adopt a lower number, correct? A lower levy. We can always choose to take a lower levy.
You can keep in mind that the amounts that's given to you, so property owners do have the ability to appeal.
Right.
So oftentimes the numbers that reported to us are not the numbers that are receipted.
Right. I mean, and then there's the Hancock Amendment, right, that is
Correct.
supposed to normalize the.
Correct.
And it doesn't. I mean, it's ineffective in doing that because there's always some math that involves personal property going down and real property going up, and so it's relatively ineffective. I guess my question is, do we have to take that number? Or is it a yes, like, why do we even vote on it if it's just a yes or no? And if we say no, nothing, like, we don't get taxed? I don't understand what the purpose of that vote is.
So the number is given to us. We do not have the ability to change the numbers that are given to us.
So why
from
do
the
we,
county.
why do we vote on it?
It's to set the levy for the budget. It's a revenue, a budgeted revenue amount. So when they give us that levy amount, that sets our revenue for the next year based on
Sure,
property
but
tax.
what happens if we
Mayor's-
vote no? Just out of curiosity, not that I intend to vote no.
Or what happens if we propose a different levy, I guess would be another way to put it. What happens if we say, look, because they send us the ceiling essentially, right? They say this is the maximum you can do. And if, I have no idea what number, they say 0.05. And we say, okay, 0.047. That is within our purview. We were able to do that, correct?
Right, it changes.
I mean, that
You want to
question
add
makes
in on this,
sense.
Nick?
Yeah.
'Cause I think they're giving us the ceiling.
I'm just curious as to what the possibilities are. And not that we'll do any of this. I just want to know, do we have any flexibility with that number?
I think one of the challenges is you technically can roll it back. They do give you the tax rate levy ceiling. You cannot go above that. But if you roll it back, that really kind of hamstrings you going forward into future years, and that then kind of resets your ceiling amount. So it's not something that we've done, and truthfully, not something I would really recommend.
Sure.
I do know just some other things as I was researching, getting ready for the very quick turnaround that we get on this is it goes based on the CPI. The Hancock Amendment goes based on the CPI, which actually has a maximum of 5%, so it cannot go above that. The actual CPI for Missouri was 6.5, so
it's
that's
capped.
actually already rolled back
Yeah.
to a 5% maximum there. And then when you say kind of like on the ineffective side of the Hancock Amendment, there are, some challenges. Some property values go up, some property values may stay more the same. So for some, yeah, it does increase more, and kind of it's a cumulative
Right.
effect there.
When
but,
you say 5%, is that the total tax revenue that we're getting from property tax?
That is, yes. So it's the CPI figure. So
It's not
if-
necessarily, it's to what you were
Yeah,
getting to, not
if
necessarily
our-
the individual percentage everyone else is going to see. It's just
what's-
we have $1 million in revenue,
yeah.
and that we can collect 5% more in
Yeah.
property tax revenue.
Based
essentially.
on the numbers we got in June, it was actually a pretty significant increase on the assessment side. So what would happen then is the levy that we're likely to get is
Yeah,
going to
already.
be rolled back from our current amount, because the assessed value that we got was over 5%.
But we're still
so it's-
anticipating increased total revenue to the city, though. Right.
Yes, on average, a 5% plus any new construction that is separated from the Hancock Amendment portion.
Right, and we base the revenue for the projected budget on what we think the levy will be times what we know to be new
Yes.
construction in the pipeline. And so but we don't know what that number is yet.
What we get from the county is the assessed valuation on the current property, plus we do get a summary of new construction that is added separately when we submit this to the state auditor's website, and where they calculate the ceiling.
Right.
That new assessment is considered separately from the
the Hancock Amendment.
And the levy,
restrictions.
but we don't know the levy rate. Like, we don't have that yet. That's what we're waiting to
Right.
get. So we don't have that known. And we also don't know if challenged assessments are going to bring some properties down. So those are our two unknowns. But without knowing what the levy's coming, like, it's guesswork making the revenue, right?
Right, and we've just left the revenue as is right now because we know as soon as we, and it is actually a pretty quick turnaround from the state. They'll give us that ceiling levy, then we plug that number in. It gives us what our new projected revenue would be.
For that meeting, which is usually like a 2-minute thing, can we have when we get the levy number, what it creates for revenue versus what we've projected? Does that make sense? Like, what we projected in the budget and built the budget off of versus what, now that we've got the data, what we're expecting off of that levy rate if approved? So that if there's room to back it off and still be within budget, is that a possibility?
Well, the number that we would get would be what our projected budget would be. So we'll plug in whatever levy we get back. That will be what our projected revenue for next year would be. It always fluctuates a little bit because we have delinquent taxes that are often paid and sometimes with penalties that ends up putting us over what we budgeted. But
Sure.
The number that we'll get on the tax levy side is what we would project to
Project to
collect.
receive.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to see the comparison between that number that we're projecting to collect and what the plug figure was in the budget.
Oh, yes, we can do that.
Yeah,
'Cause
just
it
if
will
there's a
be-
differential.
It will be, depending on how quickly we get it, we would actually incorporate that new number into the budget, and so you can see what the difference.
What the delta would be?
Yes.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Now we good on this item? We good? Huh? There we go, okay. Was it? No, you're good, good. Number 11, parking discussion, 18th Avenue.
All right, based on comments from, I believe it was a couple meetings ago, myself, Chief Freeman, and Shoewood all got together, discussed this, looked at it. Chief looked at historical data. We have a camera at 18th and Swift. It does rotate 360 degrees, but looking at historically, you're limited to which direction it was pointed at that time. But we picked 4 different times: 6:20 a.m., 7:20 a.m., 8:20, and 9:20. And then utilized cameras in the 16th and Clay parking lot as well to look up along the west side of the Oxbow, the angled parking off of 18th. So based on looking at all that, as the memo states, at 6:20 on average within 400 feet, there were 15 spaces available. And again, as far as the 18th and Swift camera, that's looking one direction. So we don't know the other 3 directions there, what was available or not. 7:20, 12 spaces available on average. 8:20, 10 spaces available. And at 9:20, on average, 6 available spaces. Based on this, at any given point during the day, there might be no spaces available on 18th in front of there. But throughout the day, it's our opinion that there is ample parking, and this is within 400 feet of the location there on 18th. So at this time, we don't recommend doing anything. We would like to watch it as retail fills up at 18th and Swift. I believe the basement or the first floor of the Oxbow, that could create some future things, but at this point, we don't know.
Here we go, Councilmember Smith.
So a lot of the things I've been hearing are early morning, the residual parkers overnight from the Oxbow have taken up the spaces. This seems to suggest at 6:20, 7:20, there's actually more spaces than later in the morning, which would say to me that effectively it's become less of a problem overnight. Now, we've worked on getting the signs up, having the parking, is parking enforcement working at that hour to, patrol that street area and ticket people yet, or?
Generally, our parking control officer starts at 8 o'clock.
Okay, because I've heard stories of people who have gotten tickets overnight and have have talked about being ticketed for parking in spaces they were told they could by management at the Oxbow. And it seems that that problem is starting to be alleviated. Now, do we know occupancy at the Oxbow at this point? Is it full yet?
97%, it's like last I heard.
Okay, so this is about what we're going to be looking at. It says, and this is within, these are street spaces within 400 feet. This isn't including the big parking lot also available past the Oxbow between 60.
We included the 12 angle spaces in
Right
the
there.
entry to that parking lot.
Okay.
As, in the calculations of available spaces.
Okay.
And to clarify, our parking control officer starts at 8, but our patrol officers actively enforce parking regulations overnight.
Okay.
Those are the ones that are writing the tickets in that 3 to 6 a.m. window.
I gotcha. But this would also include available spaces in the large lot. These numbers don't, but there would be more assumed spaces in the big lot behind the Oxbow.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Like once we started enforcement, there might be 1 or 2 cars parked in that lot overnight. So when that clock turns 6 a.m., you can assume there's 200-some spaces available
Gotcha.
in that lot.
So there's a lot of spaces. Signage for the lot, I haven't looked for it really. Are there signs up now directing people for public parking? Can I ask a question of the public, or is it not a
No, we're
possibility?
not really doing it back and forth.
Okay,
I mean, it's not what we normally do.
okay, we won't do that then.
Starts it on everything.
All right, that's what I had.
Councilmember Toll.
He said basically what I was going to say is that it shows that the overnight parking doesn't seem to be an issue, and as far as getting shakes and things in the morning, it addresses that, but this really doesn't address most people's business hours from the people that we were hearing from. So it does a great job of showing we're not having as big of an issue with the parking overnight, but not necessarily, going to the eye doctor at 10 a.m. or something, because we're only looking at the morning here. I don't want to discount the great number of people that have said that there is an issue with parking, but also I think it helps with the perception. I think maybe going forward, it would be good to look at times throughout the day, although I know that's time consuming, so maybe I could reach out and find some targeted times during the day that seem to be the most problematic.
Thank you for the comments. Further question?
Could we, for businesses that are struggling with this, have we reached out with any sort of like postcards or something they could put up in the window of their business that would educate people that the parking is available here? If they were trying to get a shake in the morning and they didn't have street spaces, there's still 200 within, walking distance.
Yes, so we have updated this parking map per the request, and we have notified the Oxbow management and the business owners as far as we have heard complaints from them before. We do have this plan that maybe we will just print out this parking map as a resource and hand it out to local businesses in this area, so as a promo, so they can give it to their customers, so they know better where the public parking spaces are. So sometimes this is more of an education issue than a real problem of parking supply itself.
Great.
I believe Captain
Chief
Freeman.
Freeman.
Chief
What do we got?
Freeman has something else to say.
Captain Freeman. There we go.
Just to address Councilmember Toll, the reason why we stopped at 9:20 is because by 10 o'clock, our parking control officer starts at 8 and start effectively enforcing the 2-hour parking that would then expire at 10 a.m. So throughout the day, once 8 a.m. starts, the 2-hour parking limitations
Okay,
on
that
all
makes
street
sense.
spaces in that area start
Yeah.
to apply.
That makes sense.
Mike, any closer? No closer. There we go. Good. All right, we are good. Next is the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve? the
Move
consent
to
agenda?
approve the consent agenda.
Second. Is there a second? I heard a second. Did you get that? Oh, hold on. Time out. Will you pull back your second then? There we go. We'll call that good. If everyone else is good with that. Okay, what do you got here?
I had a couple questions on item 18. I was
Okay, we can pull
hoping to
that
get a
one
little clarification on.
We can pull that one. Well, yeah, let's just go ahead and pull it and make it the next item. Now is there a motion to approve the amended consent agenda?
Move to approve the,
What? We went back to no motions. Now we've made an amendment on the consent agenda. He's asked something to be pulled. And so we are pulling number 18. And then Councilmember Smith made a motion to approve the amended agenda, and I believe there's a second again by Councilmember Stokes.
Second.
There is now a second by Councilmember Stokes. All in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Item number 18, contract with Olson for development of electric vehicle charging infrastructure plan, resolution number 23060. Councilmember Fitzgerald.
I had a couple questions on this. I believe the city has a current ongoing parking study already in process, and just I was envisioning that a lot of the electric vehicle, charging would end up in parking lots. And I guess I just wanted to quickly question if before paying for this, if we should consider if there's a way to incorporate this into the parking study, especially if there might be upcoming changes to development around the city, that type of thing.
I guess on the scope of this, and I don't know if this makes much of a difference, but I know we're also looking at, and I'd have to reread the scope, also possibly partnering with some private lots, maybe the school.
Yeah.
A lot of these things were kind of envisioned in this contract, so I'm not sure, and you wrote part of it. So.
Yeah, I don't know if they would go hand in hand together very clearly. This is more so looking at different things like capacity of the electric grid in certain areas, what makes sense as far as like level 1, 2, 3, what kind of grants to go after for these things. I don't know if they would lend themselves very well to a general parking discussion. They're kind of two different things, if I'm understanding the question right. But
Okay, yeah, that helps knowing. So the scope of this will be well beyond just parking location.
very much so. yeah.
Included in the scope, now that we've got this item, I think it's important to note that this also includes a certain number of hours of grant help as well.
It does,
right?
yeah.
Up
There's
to
a lot
40
of
hours,
electric-
if I recall.
There's a lot of different electric vehicle charging infrastructure grants out there available right now through the Infrastructure Jobs Act and then
NEVI.
the NEVI program. And so there's different opportunities right there that we're trying to get
Yeah.
plan together to take advantage of that.
All for it then. Thanks.
All right, is that a motion?
Yep.
Second.
You gotta give me a little,
Sorry, yeah. I always get lost. Motion to
Just move it.
approve.
there we go. There we go.
Resolution number 23060.
Oh, there we go. And there's a second by Councilmember.
Second.
All in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Item number 22, consideration of an ordinance to allow operation of golf carts on public streets, bill number 7794, ordinance number 9591. Council at its last meeting was basically, I'll say, on the fence here on this item. And now I guess we'll see tonight if we are any more clear than we were previously. Councilmember Smith.
All right, it's time to get off the fence. I'll go ahead and put out there, I understand why people have asked for golf carts. I don't want to be Captain Fun Killer, but I have some concerns, and not the least of those being that our top safety officers in the city, our chiefs of police and fire, have expressed strong concern for safety. And before I go on, I'd like to have them speak a little on that, share their thoughts on the safety concerns with golf carts one more time.
Thank you. I just think, Councilmember Smith, we would stand by the memo. I mean, we definitely don't believe that there's going to be chaos in the streets should golf carts be approved, but we also know that when an accident happens, it probably is going to be catastrophic. It's going to be traumatic. No different than a bicyclist, a scooter rider, a motorcycle rider, anybody that's not a motor vehicle on the roadways. Won't speak for Chief Hargis, but we've both been on our fair share of traumas through our careers. I've been on bicyclists that have been killed by motor vehicles. I've been on pedestrians that have been killed by motor vehicles. I've been on calls where motorcyclists were killed by motor vehicles or just themselves. It's not fun. I would say besides the safety issues and the safety concerns and the points that we've laid out in the memo is I don't want to expose our people to any more of that trauma that we have to. So if we can keep from having that issue, I would be all in favor of it. That would be my point in and above what has already kind of been mentioned.
I guess I'd ask you, do you believe the rules that were proposed in the ordinance help mitigate any of that? Are there additional rules that could help mitigate that further?
No. No, they're really not. I mean, I think we've composed a reasonable ordinance that takes every safety component into play that we probably could, but when it boils down to, it's not ever going to be enough when a motor vehicle and a golf cart collide on a city street. No safety mechanism will be beneficial in a collision like that. That's how I feel.
Thank you.
So, and for a toy, basically, for fun, and I don't think it's worth the risk.
Chief Hargis, what do we got?
I agree with most of what Chief Freeman said. We both have experienced that trauma, and it's not only the trauma of the public safety people. If there were that catastrophic event in a neighborhood, it's going to involve one of the neighbors, and that trauma affects that entire neighborhood in the city as well. And then you have to think back, was that recreational vehicle, was that worth the trauma at the end of the day? And looking at our streets, most of the places that have golf carts are more modern subdivisions that have wide streets, sweeping. They don't have all the intersecting the roads with it, so it's a completely different animal in most places that allow the golf carts on the streets. And it's just anytime you put a vehicle on a road that's not a vehicle designed for street and highway use, they're not going to hold up well in an accident. So, and that's my take on it as well. It's how much safety are you willing to sacrifice? You know, what's that gamble for that small amount of recreation?
So I appreciate that. Thank you guys for the thoughts on that. The other part is, while I do know that some people have come out and expressed that they would like to have a golf cart, that they would see some utility in it, it's still a fairly small subset of the city. And even with that, some of the people who have expressed interest would like to be able to ride them to dinner, like to go to places that would not be permitted in the ordinance anyway. So the utility of such a thing would be diminished quite a bit as it's written. And for these reasons, I can't support it. So I would be a no on this one.
Councilmember Todd.
Yes, hello. Goodness. Okay, so I've leaned all over the place, I'll just say that. But I will say, I don't think that golf carts are any more dangerous, as you mentioned, than a bicycle, than a skateboard. And I do think sometimes coming from that place of worry and trauma and things like that can prevent us from exploring options that could be okay. At the same time, we absolutely are not like most other neighborhoods that have golf carts riding around. And so I do think this would be something new. I don't think we can compare ourselves to a Lake Waukomis, to a Parkville. We aren't set up that way. But I don't necessarily think that with all of the provisions in place, I think that's a baby step. I also am comforted in knowing that this is an ordinance that could be amended or we could change it at any point. I think it's something that, I don't know, most people that I have talked to have either been completely indifferent or very strongly opposed. And most of those are, families with young children, and they're already experiencing people riding the wrong way down a one-way street and things like that, and golf carts are just another thing. My other concern was just that we're already hearing complaints about parking, and so golf carts are obviously, if they're going somewhere, are going to take up another parking space. But then we see today, sometimes it feels a little bit different than what reality might suggest. And so that's where I think we keep doing this teeter-totter. But I do also want to point out that, this came back to an agenda because someone came to council and presented it. And I want to encourage people more and more to use their voice that they do have, because you do have a voice.
And it really has sat with all of us, I think, in a lot of different ways. And that's why we didn't want to vote last time, because we really wanted to reach out and hear more voices on this particular topic. So with all of the precautions in place, I really think that that would be a baby step to see how many people might actually go out and buy a golf cart, how many people might actually use a golf cart to run to CVS or to go to the park or things like that. I do still have some major concerns. Traffic increase with having a high school here, so we're talking higher traffic at least twice a day, every weekday. I have some big concerns with that, but I don't think that those concerns should necessarily negate a baby step to see, you know, if it really would truly create a problem or if that's just something that we're worried about. So I, at this point, would lean towards a yes with the strict guidelines in place.
Thank you, Councilmember Clark.
For me, over in Ward 4, I did poll the people in my area that were, I think somebody was like, that sounds cool, and she's a fun lady. But it was also like, but just know that we can't leave our block. You know, for us, it's just kind of like, well, you know, maybe we'll go up and down the street. We can't cross the street to the park. And what I fear will happen by me saying yes is that kiddos, you know, somebody was like, could my kids go get donuts, you know, at Donut King? I'm like, fun idea. And I won't say that it will leave their head and that they wouldn't try to do that, where they're coasting down Vernon, which is one highway. And yeah, I feel a sense of responsibility to say like, you know, everybody in the avenues has a different sort of choice and decision, I suppose, but over by us, I mean, we're pretty locked in to what's possible, so I would be a no.
Further comments? Councilmember Alvarez.
Kind of at the beginning, I thought I was kind of on the fence, same way, not sure whether it was a good idea, bad idea, safety feature came into play. I did talk to a lot of different neighbors, not just what I thought was a good idea, but several people in the neighborhood. And it is a fun thing to do. I think it would be a lot of fun to be able to hop on the cart and just buzz around or whatever. But when it comes down to it, the safety, I think, is a big, big factor. And I also can't really think of an advantage of having the golf carts. Excuse me, you still have to find parking spots. It's not going to cut down on our parking issue, which is continuous. If we keep the measures in place that we have, the restrictions, I think a lot of people wanted to have them to run to some of the restaurants or different places, and that's not going to be allowed. So I just think all in all, I don't see an advantage other than they're fun. So I don't know. I don't think the risk factor is worth it. So I would say, at this time, I would say no.
Oh, you look like you're writing. Okay. No. Further comments? If not, is there a motion for a first reading? Councilmember Saber.
So moved. Motion for
There's a
first
motion
reading.
for a first reading. Is there a second?
Second.
No, there is a second. Yeah, go ahead, Councilmember Smith.
Okay, since this is an ordinance, do we need 5-3, or can it go 4-4 with a tie break?
4-4 tie.
Go 4-4, okay. And then second piece, so I guess one of my comments on this is I've heard a couple of the cases being made for it say, like Councilmember Todd just said, well, we could pass it and kind of see how things go, and if it's a problem, then we could repeal it. And playing that out a little ways, there's two ways I see it could become a problem. Is one, an injury accident, which then we have a real problem. Like we've had somebody injured because of this, and that's troubling. We don't want to get there at all. And the second way it could become a problem is if, as it's been kind of explained, so many people go out and get them that it becomes kind of parking and cluttering of the streets. If at that point we decide it's a problem and we cancel the ordinance, we've had a handful of people go out and buy $3,000 to $5,000 to $7,000 machines that are now illegal if we call the ordinance back. So once the horse is out of the barn, I don't see us coming back here and saying, never mind, sorry all you people who spent a lot of money on those cars, now you can't drive them. So I am very cautious with saying see how it goes and then pull it back, because there's only really two bad outcomes to that one to me. Or, of course, it succeeds and there's no problem.
Further comments? Councilmember Tulloh.
I was going to say exactly that. I can't see pulling it back after somebody spends thousands of dollars. I was behind one of the Parks Department ones that came through the neighborhood going to the dog park, and I thought, it didn't seem, I was paying attention, didn't seem like it was that big of a deal, but it was in the wide open area of where we were. And then I drive down through the avenues sometimes, and I think I can't hardly see what's on the other side there. My biggest thing that I keep coming back to is I was a supporter of scooters, and I can't tell you how many underage kids I've seen on scooters that you're not supposed to be able to do with the apps. So that is a real concern of mine. And when I did push out and ask for, let's give people a chance to reach out to your council members, the feedback that I got was negative. Why would you go against what your public safety officers are telling you to do? Do your job and listen to your experts. So I would also be on the no vote side.
Further comments? All right, you have a motion, a second. All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, say no.
No.
Motion fails. Next item. Item number 23, consideration of an ordinance amending term of agreement with NOSIX to operate and maintain Link City. Bill number 7797, ordinance number 9594. Go ahead, please.
Members of the council, Mayor, as previously, we have brought back an amendment to the agreement to operate and maintain Link City. It adds 3 years. Additionally, this memo provides some information that NOCIX provided to us regarding free services. But I'm not going to step back through the previous memos from the previous meetings, but just to lay out, I believe Brooks Brown and Aaron Wendell are here from NOCIX, should there be any questions. But we've provided options in the memo as well.
What do we got? Councilmember Smith.
I want to say that I'm happy that it's here. I think it's a great thing for our residents and the schools and the churches and the library. I know we've put the 3 years out there to kind of see how things look in the next 3 years, so I would go first reading on this one.
Second.
All right, further comments? Councilmember Fitzgerald.
I don't want to end the free internet service. I think it's a great benefit for our community. That being said, I just want to, clarify maybe some of my points of thinking on this is that city owns the fiber network, and there's a for-profit company that runs it for us. In fiscal year 2022, the most recently available audited financial statements, the management fee represented about 60% of the operating costs and I guess the cost of goods sold of the total expenses reported for operating the network. And that management fee, my understanding, it's more or less in lieu of personnel costs, but it is a fixed contractual number. So just based on the nature of this agreement, we're essentially getting to 60% of the cost of operating this network. We don't really know if they're true and accurate. So I'm worried it could put the city in a bad position down the road by not knowing the majority of the actual operating costs. So that's the area that just gives me a little bit of concern, and just what are we setting up for in the future if this ever does change, or if someone else does need to run it, that type of thing, and we don't have a good idea of the costs. So that's my only piece of hesitation here. I might feel better about just trying the 1 year term and continuing to see if more information might become available, but would like to keep it going.
I guess I'm going to have a question, and this is maybe staff can answer it, but maybe NOSIX can. And I believe I asked this question before. What assets does the city currently own that NOSIX is maintaining? Okay, maybe, okay, never
Well,
mind.
I'm gonna say, correct me if I'm wrong, but the fiber in the ground, the huts, the equipment in the huts, I believe all the ditch width, all that was purchased through agreement by you.
Yeah, you might just,
Yeah, come on
you,
up.
this is, yeah. Sorry, and I know, well, I'm fairly confident you've answered this before, but I think you get the question, like what is still kind of considered a city asset with this?
So all the huts, the buildings themselves, are city assets. The equipment inside, the air conditioners, the network equipment, racks, that sort of stuff inside the huts, the fiber in the ground. There's also, some of the assets were transferred to us
Okay.
in kind of a long-term purchase type of situation. So there's 3 vehicles, a van, and a couple trucks. There's a splice trailer, some spools, other things like that.
So can you generally speak to the condition of all those city assets?
The huts now were put out in 2006. They are getting a little old. The fiber, again, was put in the ground, most of it, the core anyway, in 2006. The effective life on fiber optic cable is 20 to 25 years. So we're kind of coming to the end of its effective life. Because of some of the increase in residential, so when we took it over from the city had about a 35% market penetration. And now, if you don't count the major, or the newer MDUs, then we're about 97% of the residents use us. Because of that, we've had to put a lot of new equipment in some of those huts, and so the air conditioning is somewhat underpowered. We actually have a third air conditioner for one of the huts. They've all got 2. That's a fairly significant capital expense that we've gone back and forth with the city on over the last couple of years. But they're all maintained, they're all working, so.
I do feel like that's definitely an important item. I think we need to resolve sometime. It sounds like in the very near future is a lot of this stuff's kind of hitting a.
It's definitely showing its age. We, DC plants, for example, so the backup to all of the network gear in the huts is basically car batteries that sit there, and there's what's called a rectifier and an inverter, and they charge the batteries, and then if the power goes out, all the network equipment runs off the batteries. Well, those are, again, approaching their 20-year life. I don't think, I know we have several issues with them. We've replaced the batteries every 5 to 7 years as recommended, but the equipment itself is not actually manufactured anymore. So we had a lightning strike a couple of years ago that took out 2 huts, actually, and we were able to get those systems redone with insurance. So those are brand new, and that's great, but there are 5 other huts that the equipment is old and maybe not working so great in.
Because I asked, because this is one of our strategic plan items, I think, from a little while back, which was it's under our goal of improving and sustaining Lake City, completing a fiber technology audit, which, if I recall correctly, kind of the intent was to take a deeper look at that sort of things. So from the staff side, was the current trajectory of that item?
We're in the process of getting the RFP out right now. The scope's been developed, so now we're in the process of getting the RFP written so we can, I would.
What kind of timeline would you expect on that?
I would guess getting the RFP out within the month. And then we'd have to give enough time for consultants to get to know our network, and then so I'd guess I would hope to have proposals back, say a month,
And
within
I didn't want to say
3 to 4 months.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't want to make it sound like you guys aren't taking care of that, but I do have concerns as it ages. I want to make sure we're all taking care of that together, really. If you had to replace some of that equipment now, what does that look like with the current agreement?
So
Let's say you had a massive, several of the huts went out at once.
Yeah,
or
so
components of it.
our agreement is to operate and maintain. It doesn't really cover replacement of equipment that goes bad.
In instances where that's been an issue, we've gone back to the city and worked with staff in order to cover most or all of that expense. Again, we've had some discussions about the air conditioners. We've had some discussions about the DC plants in the past. Any capital improvements over $5,000 have to come before city council.
Yeah.
And you haven't seen us up here a whole lot, so we don't do a lot of things over $5,000.
This is where the question was kind of coming in. I guess, from your perspective, do you believe we have a larger bill coming due on that stuff?
I think there's definitely some replacement issues that the city needs to look at and be aware of for coming down the pipe.
Thank you for answering those. Councilmember Saper.
With those immediate and previous comments made, it seems to me we do need this more information. And the only reasonable option to me is to take no action and to give us another year to come up with some answers to a lot of these unknown questions. What is the future cost of replacing much of our infrastructure here in terms of Link City? And we don't have that information now. We could be getting it, as you said, as the city administrator said, in what, 3 months, 4 months? So going ahead with a one-year extension, the automatic extension, seems to be the most prudent thing we could do at this point.
I guess that would be a question for NOSIX. Would they be willing to consider a one-year extension and then further
And
extending
then
beyond?
that goes back to you.
Well, yeah, I know 1 year's the automatic, but they also could still
Right.
they could still withdraw in the next 2 days, if I understand it correctly.
Right. The
Yeah.
notice has to be given for termination by Thursday,
Yeah.
or maybe Wednesday night or Thursday, something like that. I think it's the 7th
Yeah,
or the 8th.
yeah.
In any event, we've had some internal discussions on that. We actually had we renegotiated this contract after we did it originally, and there were lots of things at play. There were a couple things that came up before council. Council decided to not go that route. In any event, that whole thing took us about 3 years after we took it over. And so we could go for another year extension. The 3-year extension was kind of brought up because that seems to be how long it takes. The other thing is there's a lot of unknowns that we can't even answer today. Like, what is North Kansas City going to look like 3 years from now? Is there going to be a ball stadium 3 blocks down the street? Is there going to be something else 3
We'll know
blocks
that
down the street?
within 1 year.
So that's we hope so.
Do you know something?
I'm not telling you it. I'll talk
Let me know.
later.
Yeah, there's also issues, and this is a broader issue that is part of why we are talking about an extension over 3 years to get past it. But there are broader issues with construction costs when we have to build out to a business or a residence. And the time, when we first started this, we could amortize those costs over 10 years. And as the 10 years got shorter and shorter, we can't amortize those costs. So what we have to do is a business comes to us and says, I want internet access. That's great, that's a revenue stream, but I can only look at that revenue stream right now over the next 12 months. And so if it's going to cost me $5,000 to build out to Sonic, which is what it would cost us to build them, I have 12 months to amortize that over, which means that the price I have to charge them is so exorbitantly large that they're never going to go with us, because I can't amortize it out of a contract that I don't have. So that's the other issue that we come up with, and that's actually a broader issue that is going to need to be addressed over the next 3 years as well. But that's one of the biggest obstacles that we have with the way the current agreement is structured.
I'm going to totally skip subject real quick, and then I'll get you back. Councilmember Toll. The dark fiber contracts, the city negotiated those a while back. Because I know it's kind of looking at several reports, it looks like a fixed rate every single year. Do you guys negotiate those further contracts now when those expire for
We
with
do,
Google
yes.
and I think Unite? Okay.
We haven't, because those were 20-year contracts.
Yeah,
that
you
came
haven't
out
actually had to
outright.
hit that window
Right.
yet. Okay.
Now-
That's what I was wondering, because I saw it fixed year to year to year, which normally, I mean, we're seeing.
Now, in the next year, Google actually has the option to buy out of their current contract.
Okay.
So if that happens, that could really change the economics of
Changes this
what we've
year.
got going
Yeah.
on. And so we're not sure where that's going to go. Unite's they're kind of out for 20 years. everybody else on dark fiber contracts, I think, is pretty
I
stable.
was just kind of taking a peek at some of those contracts. I guess I didn't see how those got handled, but you're handling those. Perfect. Councilmember Toll.
I too would like more information about what the management fee goes towards, but what has swayed my decision on 1 year versus 3 years is the argument that you have to be able to spread out those costs to get new people, because we definitely want more people involved to have a healthy revenue income so we can do the changes that we know are coming. I mean, we know that we're going to have to replace everything in the next 10 years at least, probably much sooner than that. But I would like the details just to see what we're paying for, but we could hopefully in good faith get those as we work together.
So one of the things that didn't really work out when we took over the contract originally is payroll. And so Knox employs 23 people. Of those 23 people, there's a couple that are full-time for Link City. And so the number originally was based on the payroll numbers that the city was paying to city employees at the time that we took it over. We were required under the contract to hold those employees on our books for 6 months, which we did. So we couldn't take any less because otherwise we would have to come out of pocket to pay those people. So one thing that we did was we went back and we said, okay, well, you know, these people, they want raises, they want benefits, they want those sorts of things. It's easier for us to employ them at Knox instead of at a separate company because we already have health care, we have 401k, we have all that sort of stuff for them. So the number that the management fee represents is payroll.
So do you do billable hours for Link City from your pool of employees, sorry.
There are employees that do nothing but work for Link City. So those are the employees that are represented on our payroll. Now, we can pull from the pool that Knox has. So for example, the city employed 2 outside plant guys. We employ 1. But if he's out and he needs some extra hands, we have a construction crew that works for us full-time. I can send 2 or 3 other guys out to. So when we look at the shared expenses, we look at what percentage of their time is spent working for Link City versus working for Knox. And some of those guys are 5%, some of them are 10%. We have those numbers, and we would be happy to share them with you guys.
That would be great.
The issue is we consider them proprietary, which is another reason why it's just 1 line item and not 7 or 8. So we will show them to you, but we won't give them to you where they are subject to freedom of information requests or things like that.
Got it. Okay. I had one more question for you. You said that residentially we were looking at, what did you start off with, 35%, and now you said 97%?
That's correct.
But is that just single-family homes, or are we talking, how many apartment buildings are you into?
So that includes, obviously, we're in gallery lofts. I think we're 100% in gallery lofts. We have a lot of the duplexes, a lot of the fourplexes in town use us. As a matter of fact, most of them do. Really what it excludes is park lofts, it excludes Sunny Hills, gallery lofts, or I'm sorry, not gallery lofts, Oxbow, and whatever that is out on Diamond Parkway. Back door, yes.
Do you know, is 23rd and Swift, that development, are they using Link City? Are they going to use Link City? Do you know?
We've been back and forth with them. The issue with the MDUs is that they get kickbacks.
Yeah.
So if AT&T comes in and says, I'm going to, it's like Oxbow. If you live in the Oxbow, you pay $100 a month community fee, which includes your trash and your internet. Well, what happens there is AT&T is giving them a wholesale rate. They're then reselling it to all of their tenants and at a markup. And so when it's free, I can't really give a kickback or I can't make a markup on it. So they're really not interested in dealing with us most of the time.
I'm trying to think, maybe someone else remembered Bloom. Did we require that at Bloom?
Yes.
That was very strong affirmation there. Yes, I thought we did, and something we should, I think, consider.
Yeah,
We go forward on other
23rd and
projects.
Swift,
Yeah.
we've kind of gone back and forth with them. They've not been the easiest people to deal with from a construction standpoint. But we're not sure if they're going to go with us or not. AP5, which is one of the huts we talk about, is, I think, 400 feet north of them. So it would be fairly easy for us to service them. But again, we went down this path with Oxbow, and they got to a point where, well, AT&T says they'll come in and they'll pay us this, and we can make this, and you guys are free, so we can't make anything off of you, so we're not interested.
That's a tough market to be in.
It is. It's tough. You'd be amazed at what it takes to
Yeah.
get people to take free stuff sometimes.
Unreal. Okay, okay, we're all over the place. What do we got over here? Anything else over here? All right. We do have a motion and a second on the table. There was some conversation about potentially looking at considering a 1 year and then maybe cleaning up some of these things as discussed tonight with construction cost. Maybe the network audit as well. But there is already a motion and a second. Councilmember Alvarez.
I was just going to say that I think for most of the residents that I've talked to have been very pleased with the service that we've had. So I would recommend going ahead and going with the 3-year if that would work for their business. But that's just a suggestion.
Yeah, and I would note on top of that, I've heard no complaints of really, say, end user experience. It is functioning exactly as we would want it to function from the end user experience. I think there's just a couple contract cleanup related stuff. No, waved off. Councilmember Smith.
A couple other things. So not only is it the residents, which are obviously our core constituency, but it is also the school that gets a, what's the speed? 100 gig connection, which is wild.
The high school peaks at 20.
Okay.
20 gig. The school district gets 100, but
Okay.
that's not per our agreement. The high school is
Sure.
per our agreement.
But that's part and parcel is they're able to do that because of the arrangement that we have. It's not part of it, but it is something they're doing.
Right. So the school district itself gets 100 gig. Of that, the high school uses roughly 20 gig of it. But Winnetonka uses that. I mean, every elementary school, the entire 21,000 students and staff use that network. That bandwidth is outside of the Link City network. Really, it's the fiber to go from our facility at 16th and Swift up to the high school that is the Link City part. And that contract, that agreement was in place before we ever actually considered taking over and maintaining Link City.
The other part is the management fee that we've discussed. I walked through that with Mike year over year, and it was laid out as based on payroll at the time, but there was a clause in there that allowed for an increase. I forget what the number was, but that increase has not been maximized. It could have been more. They could have charged more per the contract than they have been, and so it's been a bit on the conservative side of not taking more than they needed, which I appreciate. I didn't know that coming into the last meeting, and I do appreciate that that's not been, it was a cash grab. If they wanted it, they could have grabbed it per the contract, and they didn't. And that gives me some, I really like what I see there. So yeah, I think going with a 3-year is a good idea. We'll find some facts. We'll learn about some things as we go, but it's been satisfactory. It's something I really love in the city, and I think it's a good idea.
Further comments? Seeing none, there's a motion and second for a 3-year, first reading of the 3-year contract. All in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed? No. Motion carries.
No.
No, one no, please.
I was just going to point out that as mentioned, we'll do the audit, 3 to 4 months to get the RFPs back. Then it will take time for the consultant to perform the audit, but it will be done and we'll get those costs. I mean, this doesn't push any of that back.
Amy?
Well, read this and then we can continue on.
An ordinance approving amendment to amended and restated agreement to operate fiber optic network by and between Knox LLC, formerly known as Data Shack LC, and the City of North Kansas City, Missouri.
There we go. Councilmember Clark.
I move that bill number 7797 be placed on second and final reading and pass as ordinance number 9594.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Councilmember Alvarez?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember Stokes?
Yes.
Councilmember Todd?
Yes.
Councilmember Saper?
No.
Councilmember Tull?
Yes.
An ordinance approving amendment to amended and restated agreement to operate fiber optic network by and between
Knockix LLC, formerly known as Data Shack LC, and the City of North Kansas City, Missouri.
Number 24, ordinance approving 3 documents related to the Backyard Apartments, NKC Housing LLC, the developer of the Backyard Apartments, Bill number 7798, ordinance number 9595. And, is there a first reading? No, Tom's scrambling here. What do we got? Give that man a mic. There we go. Now take it away. Okay.
For the first time ever, I will attempt to be the very shortest this evening.
But he says it every time.
In essence, what we have here this evening is a request by the developer of the Backyard Apartments to essentially, they have lender A, and they now need to have a permanent lender. And as you will recall, when we issued the Chapter 100 bonds down there, those Chapter 100 bonds were subordinate to that mortgage, if you will, the lender, right? In essence, all we're doing is swapping out lenders, but since we were involved, because we are the landlord, the city owns technically the property. This required actually Mr. Sparks going round and round with their lawyers till they finally got it, okay? That we're not taking any other responsibility, that we're not making any other promises that we did before. And that's what, in a nutshell, that's what this does. It makes the lease, it makes the Chapter 100 bonds, et cetera, they will all be subordinate to this new loan, if you will, the new lender. And there are 3 documents that need to be approved. And if you read my footnote, you noticed that footnote 2 said that, in fact, we required them, staff did, to have a funding agreement at the going in side of this, so Mr. Sparks' fees are not being paid by the city, they're being paid by them.
I did actually know
through
that,
the
but-
city.
Yeah, I did see that.
Okay?
First reading?
Second.
All in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed, say no. Motion carries.
An ordinance approving 1, the First Amendment to a Chapter 100 bond lease, 2, a joinder to NKC Housing LLC security instrument to Walker and Dunlap and Fannie Mae, and 3, a ground lesser estoppel certificate, all in connection with the Backyard Apartment Project and authorizing the execution thereof by the mayor and the city clerk.
You had me at paid for by them. Bill number, I move that bill number 7798 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9595.
Second?
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Councilmember Alvarez?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember Stokes?
Yes.
Councilmember Todd?
Yes.
Councilmember Saper?
Yes.
Councilmember Toll?
Yes.
An ordinance approving 1, the First Amendment to a Chapter 100 bond lease, 2, a joinder to NKC Housing LLC's security instrument to Walker and Dunlap and Fannie Mae, and 3, a ground lesser estoppel certificate, all in connection with the Backyard Apartment Project and authorizing the execution thereof by the mayor and the city clerk.
We got to have the record for the longest titles. Number 25. He doesn't like that one. Ordinance approving an agreement between the city and Reuben Brown LLP to serve as independent auditors for the annual financial audit. Bill number 7799, ordinance number 9596. Oh, yeah, we can't. We got to have him come up. He's waited all night for the.
Well, we get budget and audit in one night. That's very exciting for my group. So, good evening, Mayor, members of the council. With the completion of the last audit, that ended our 4-year agreement with Reuben Brown, so we went to RFP. Shortly after that, we received 3 bids, which is actually a fairly high number comparing it to some other cities' experiences in the last few years. One was Reuben Brown, who we are recommending tonight. The other 2 were Forvis, formerly BKD, and then a group out of Iowa and Minnesota, Bergen KDV. After reviewing all 3 proposals, Reuben Brown was the choice among our committee. And part of it was just due to their audit approach, our experience with
their group overall over the last 4 years, but also the fact that they would be switching engagement partners, which was a key for us to have a different set of eyes looking at that, but also keeping some of the familiarity with the audit. We've got a good team in place on our finance team. We're looking at making a lot of evaluations and potential changes that would benefit us, and having a similar group, or having the same group looking at our books was just an advantage for us, including with the fire and pension audit, which we'll be looking at that every other year for the next 3 to 5 years.
Very beautifully described. Thank you.
First reading?
Second.
All in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed, say no. Motion carries.
An ordinance adopting and approving an agreement between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri and Reuben Brown LLP to serve as independent auditors for the city's annual financial audit.
I move that bill number 7799 be placed on second and final reading and pass as ordinance number 9596.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Smith,
Yep.
Councilmember Fitzgerald, Councilmember Alvarez,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Stokes,
Yes.
Councilmember Todd,
Yes.
Councilmember Saper,
Yes.
Councilmember Tull.
Yes.
An ordinance adopting and approving an agreement between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri and Reuben Brown LLP to serve as independent auditors for the city's annual financial audit.
Item number 26, consideration of an ordinance authorizing payment for certain accounts due and payable by the city through September 1st, 2023. Bill number 7800, ordinance number 9597.
First reading?
Second.
All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Motion carries.
An ordinance authorizing payment for certain accounts due and payable by the city through September 1st, 2023.
I move that bill number 7800 be placed on second and final reading and pass as ordinance number 9597.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgerald,
Yes.
Councilmember Alvarez,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Stokes.
Yep.
Councilmember Todd,
Yes.
Councilmember Saper.
Yes.
Councilmember Tull.
Yes.
An ordinance authorizing payment for certain accounts due and payable by the city through September 1st, 2023.
Now back to me. Staff comments.
Items of note are in the packet tonight. Other than that, I believe Kim and Victoria each have comments, and that's it.
I'll make mine very brief. The next version of the North Kansas City Citizens Academy, we are taking applications. The next academy will run from October to December, and we would love anybody who is interested to please apply. The form is online, or you can call City Hall.
Fantastic. Victoria, good evening.
Good evening. I just wanted to share with everybody that Endless Game was a huge success, and we are world record setters. So, and then this weekend we have Briarfest, so please come out. Encourage your neighbors to come out. Parking will be very limited. I imagine it'll be kind of like a Snake Saturday, and but we'll have 2 access points. One will be on like the corner of Ozark and Clark Ferguson, and the other one will be like the Breezeway. So there's 2 ways to get into the festival. It starts Friday at 4 o'clock, and we kick off with a toast to the teacher. So anybody in education, whether they're a teacher or janitor, they work in the office, bring your school ID. The first drink's on us. And then Saturday, we kick off with a dunk tank to raise money for charity, and then go till about 10:30 at night. So hope to see you guys there.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Where is the Breezeway?
So the Breezeway is at Sprudy Circle, that little walk through as you're going up to the festival shelter.
Okay. Got it.
Okay.
Thanks.
Done? All right, council member comments. Councilmember Smith.
All right, betting leadoff tonight. I will also call out the Endless Game. It was excellent. Stopped by for the record-breaking 83-hour eclipsing, and then the record-setting 100 hours. Absolutely incredible. A huge shout-out to Victoria and the Parks Board. The Parks Board folks, I'm pretty sure were there for all 100 hours. Like, the group that I saw each time I came by was the same. They were all there. I don't know how they did it. I'm pretty sure Liz Ryan did not sleep for 100 consecutive hours. let's see, the folks that spoke about, I'm going to butcher his name, but Gus Limecooler. Very cool tribute, fully support, and if you haven't read the book that they held up, go to the library and check it out. Cover to cover, great stuff, like really cool stuff about this town. And then just want to address a basic thing about the stadium discussion. A number of public comments and comments around town and on social media have said residents should have been consulted before we got to this point. And I just want to let everybody know we haven't gotten to any point. We've been approached by the team. No decisions have been made or asked for by the city. So we're in the information gathering phase. We're just as in this as anybody else. We have found things out hours before they go public. So there's no us going out and grabbing things and trying to do things in the shadows. The public knows what we know. So there has been no going around and not listening to the residents. All we've done is heard things at this point, so that no decisions have been made. Just wanted to dispel that rumor. So that's all from me.
There we go. Thank you, Councilmember Fitzgerald.
I'm going to be echoing mostly what Councilmember Smith said, but glad to see the endless game. Would like to see that road sign too for Mr. I can't struggle with the name, but yeah, I guess there. Citizens Academy is a great program too, so I just want to highlight that to go ahead and sign up, and you'll learn some interesting information about the city if you haven't gone through that before. And echoing the comments on the Royals to address some of the public comments, the city hasn't made a decision. We haven't been asked for a decision. We've been receiving the same presentations that are made publicly available. There hasn't been a formal council meeting or anything like that where there's been no decision or ask at this point. I'm curious to see what does happen, be it however it ends up.
Thank you, Councilmember Alvarez.
There were several topics this evening, so I won't go into all of them, but kind of the same as the two previous council members had just mentioned. Thought it was great what the Parks and Rec Board did. The endless game, it was great. So a lot of people helped out, a lot of people volunteered, so that was pretty exciting. Also, I agree with the tribute to Gus Limecooler. I think that's great. So he should be recognized, a big part of the city. Also excited about the River Forest Park and looking forward to see how that turns out and getting started on that. I think that's a great idea. So looking forward to seeing that being done too. And then I guess that's just about it. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Clark.
Ray, thanks for city staff and everybody's efforts and listening ears for River Forest Park. I'm excited to make a pretty strong decision within like 7 days with our new fast committee. I just want to say thank you to Councilmember Fitzgerald. I know you went out on a limb there on Link City, and maybe the whole city thought that we were not for, but we were all for it. We did want to see the numbers boiled down, and we did want these things, and I really appreciate you sticking to that and bringing that forward and doing your job, man. You're just doing your job, and you did awesome. You did awesome, so I appreciate that. Yeah, great job, Parks. Great job, all the volunteers that look like an amazing success. So nice work there. And Gus Limecooler, wherever you are out there, I know you're not, but he could be haunting one of us. I don't know. But he did awesome things, and I'm of course supportive of putting his name on a street sign. That's it.
Echo all the comments that have been made. I'm also in awe of our Parks and Rec Department and the board. I'm excited for Briarfest. If you come out, I'll serve you a beer. I'll be serving, so I'm pretty excited about it. See you there. 9 months pregnant, doing it.
Councilmember Todd.
Yes, well, I can't wait to be served by you. I'll be there. So hope to see a lot of people out there. Our Parks Board is just incredible. I feel like we're always putting things on and always doing incredible things. Definitely something that makes the city so special. I echo all of the other great comments as well. Definitely in support of putting up the street sign. And I guess, little food for thought comment is that I guess when I think about resident voices, I want to make it very clear
we are also residents, and we are wanting to hear those voices. I'm not on Facebook probably as much as I should be, I don't know. But when I think about, people saying that their voices aren't heard, oftentimes I think what that means is that they are voicing themselves on Facebook, the neighborhood group or things like that. And that neighborhood group, I think, is great in a lot of ways, but it's the water cooler. It's not the conference strategic table. This is the conference room, and it's the strategic table that every resident is invited to. We want to hear those voices, and we do try to make that easy. I love that Liz said we need to canvass more. I agree, and I accept your challenge. 2024 resolution, Liz, is to get out there and canvass everyone in my ward. But in the midst of that, even without that, I just want to make it clear that every single one of these meetings is live streamed, and if you can't catch it on the live stream, you can go back and watch it. If you don't want to watch all the parts that you aren't that interested in, like the big book discussions and things like that, you can kind of look at the agenda and skip ahead to the things that do interest you. And every single one of our phone numbers and emails is on the website. Go to nkc.org or just Google, and I Googled this as I was sitting here just to make sure that it's that easy. I just Googled NKC City Council, and I was able to, the very first thing that came up, I was able to click on NKC City Council, click on City Council. I saw all of our faces. You click on any one of those faces, you're going to see a phone number. The one that's listed for me is my personal cell phone number. Call me, text me. So until I can get to your Canvas store, or even when I handed out flyers before, I tried to make things accessible because some people use their cell phones and some people don't, and some people like to use QR codes and some people don't. And so we are trying to make things accessible, but I also challenge all of our residents to get away from the water cooler and come to the strategic table at the conference room. You're invited. You're all invited. And so much of what was on the agenda tonight was there because someone came and spoke here in the conference room. And then it got put on an agenda, and we had the discussions. Some of those discussions we needed more time with. And so I just want to also challenge our residents that make your voices heard in the right room.
Thank you, Councilmember Saper.
Amen to all of that. Thank you. And to the Parks and Recreation Board and staff, you did a bang-up job throughout the game and upcoming Fest, and you guys have more than earned your tax increase. Thank you.
Councilmember Tuttle.
I want to say thank you to Julie for coming and presenting for the Business Council. I thought she did a great job, very informational, and never ever have I heard them ask for less money. That was exciting, and going a little more paperless, so that's good. And I thought the discussion about Gus and having a street dedicated kind of encapsulated everything that we like about our city. So we had a lot of talk about the spirit of North Kansas City and the community that we have. And I thought, well, that was just such a wonderful thing to follow up, because that's a lot about what we like about North Kansas City community. So I'm definitely in favor of that, and thank you for everyone who came out to speak. I thought we had a great discussion up here on many topics, and I appreciate everybody bringing their thoughts forward.
Perfect. Thank you to the Parks and Rec Board for doing a fantastic job. I was able to stop by the Endless game one of those nights, and it was great to see so much activity planned around that as well. A point I made to Mike earlier related to staff comments probably going forward. I'd like to see the strategic plan actually end up on the agenda every item, or every meeting, with updates on the items, including probably adding some sort of column related to the appropriate KPIs that would indicate the progress on all of these items. It's just so we're always up to date on exactly where those items are. And with that, I have no further comments. Everyone said a lot. Now we have executive sessions. Oh, yeah. Legal counsel has advised me that we do each one separately.
Didn't we figure out there was a way we didn't have to do that, Tom?
Other cities do it. He feels it's not appropriate.
Tom,
Number 30.
Five separate votes.
Number 30, consideration of a request to hold and recess an executive session is requested by the city councilor to be held on this date on a potential litigation matter pursuant to Missouri Revised Statutes 610-0211. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Call the roll, please. Trust me, I've tried.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Try every.
Councilmember Fitzgerald? Councilmember Alvarez?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember Stokes?
Yes.
Councilmember Todd?
Yes.
Councilmember Saper?
Yes.
Councilmember Toll?
Yes.
All right, there we go. Item number 31, consideration of request to hold and recess in an executive session is requested by the city councilor to be held on this day on a potential litigation matter pursuant to Missouri Revised Statute 610-0211.
Move to approve?
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember
Yes.
Smith? Councilmember Fitzgerald? Councilmember Alvarez?
Yes.
Councilmember
Yes.
Clark? Councilmember Stokes?
Yes.
Councilmember Todd?
Yes.
Councilmember Saper?
Yes.
Councilmember Toll?
Yes.
Number 32, consideration of request to hold and recess in an executive session is requested by the city administrator to be held on this date on a real estate matter pursuant to Missouri Revised Statute 610-0212.
Move to approve?
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Councilmember Alvarez?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember Stokes?
Yes.
Councilmember Todd?
Yes.
Councilmember Saper?
Yes.
Councilmember Toll?
Yes.
Number 33, consideration or request to hold and recess in an executive session is requested by the mayor to be held on this date on a contractual matter pursuant to Missouri Revised Statute 610-02112.
Move to approve?
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember
Yes.
Smith? Councilmember Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Councilmember Alvarez?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember Stokes?
Yes.
Councilmember Todd?
Yes.
Councilmember Saper?
Yes.
Councilmember Toll?
Yes.
Throwing them off with the quick count there. Hey, and for everyone sitting here, we do not need number 34 anymore, so we don't have to do it again. With that, the live feed and Channel 2 will be cutting off. There'll be no further public votes or business this evening. Thank you.